son of a bitch.
I see is solid start.
And today
we're here with Scott.
what do we call it? Game of Thrones. We just lost him.
I've never watched Game of Thrones. I'm sorry.
I didn't finish it because hi.
Hey, we're back. How's that? It works. The internet works. God bless it. What a wonderful time to be alive.
Welcome back, darling.
Yeah. G'day to Facebook, who were just looking at YouTube for the last little while there. And YouTube, potentially, maybe. Who knows? But internet, we love it.
My first time on a computer, Scotty. It's okay.
It definitely feels like my first time on a computer right at the moment. But no, internet works. G'day, everyone, and a g'day to Alex and Milne for joining us here at the Whisky Roundtable episode 3, a conversation of all things whiskey and rubbish. You might notice that we had, oh God, yeah, hold on, you're coming in. We're coming in -1 Matt Bailey. At the moment, he's going to be joining us in a little bit. But while I just play around with this a little bit, a g'day to David and or Caroline Taylor from Launceston tuning in on the Facebook there. And I'm sure there's people on the YouTube as well, but I'll get to that when picks that up. We can play there a little bit. Guys, how we doing?
Super.
Oh, good.
Good. I think this is probably the only time I put pants on every week. So.
Cool.
See, I'm actually here at the Oak Barrel, and so anyone sort of walking past the IGA can potentially see it. So this is the moment I actually take pants off for, because I have to wear pants all day. So I'm just in a little bit of the opposite to you. How's the week been? It feels like it's been almost a week since we last spoke. And just before I get you to answer that question, a big g'day to Vicky Dahlenburg, who might know one of us on here, who says, g'day Vicky. Love to have you on the chat.
Hi, Mum.
She made it at the start this time. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things there's like 20 people watching, which means that it's not just my mum and dad in different rooms of the house jumping up the figures, because I don't have 19 streaming devices. G'day to Lee White as well on the Facebook. But yes, getting back to it, how's the week been?
Yeah, it's been good. It feels like it's been really quick. I'm losing track of all days. Was it Easter this weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
It was last weekend. Yeah. See, I was like, have we just done we did just do a 4-day week, and then now into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm losing track of days. I feel like I'm having the same. Like I get confused whether I have conversations with one person or another, because now they all take place in the same room. So I have no idea of. I sort of keep on sort of turning to my wife and telling her something. It's just like, yeah, you told me that 10 minutes ago. I was like, oh, I thought I was talking to someone else. Yeah. So I'm losing all track of who I'm talking to and what conversations I had. So I either repeat myself or just miss out really important details, thinking they know that information. It's not going down too well.
Yeah, look, I don't think you're alone there.
I think this week was the first week I actually kicked right into I'm on holiday leave mode. So I have spent a lot of time on TikTok.
Okay, so before we get into whiskey chat, and maybe this is, then connected. I've got a housemate who seems to be mentioning the words tick and tock at, reasonably more frequent intervals, which I think might be a little bit of a push saying, Scott, maybe download the app and maybe we should be making TikToks in the house. For those who are on it, is there anything that I would be interested in whatsoever on TikTok? Anything whiskey related?
I'd love to watch you dance.
There's nothing whiskey related. I have tried. I think the copyright laws don't allow that, but I've definitely thought, how can we do something pretty cool with whiskey and TikTok? Because obviously we're all at home and it's absolutely exploded. Everyone's creating content, and it definitely keeps my day entertained at the moment. I've gone from the most responsibility I've ever had in my life to TikTok.
Yeah, I've seen some, some sports people and, people who are in reasonably professional fields in their working life, dancing around lounge rooms on TikTok. So, yeah, I haven't been quite one over yet.
As long as you don't get to making a video of Imagine, then I think we're all in a good place.
Yeah. G'day to Phil Brooks listening in on the Facebook as well. So there's a couple of things I want to speak on tonight. Some of the bigger things I want to chat when Matt's around as well, just on some thoughts, but I'll give you a forewarning. They're doing a bit of a stream at the moment about getting into the whiskey industry and our experiences in that sort of thing. So I think that could be a really cool thing to talk about a little bit later, talking about how we got into this and where we got into this, because I think we probably all came from pretty different angles. So I'll give you a chance to have a think about that and forewarn you that question's coming. What's in the glass?
Wine.
Wine, good. Yeah, I like wine.
Don't judge my glass and my white choice. I just like a big glass. We don't do any booze shaming around here, but
Never.
I am probably gonna crack this tonight.
Nice.
Ooh. That's the juice. I do like that.
Yeah.
I am on something a little bit different.
Delicious.
So this is the straight rye.
It's like we planned it.
You guys not send me the memo?
We've done this before.
Thank you.
That's small batch, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm trying to actually watch the film, but keep on getting distracted and doing things. So I've been watching it staggered. But I've never got around to watching Neat Bourbon Story. So I've just started watching that and was listening about the story about Colonel Taylor and how Bottled in Bond was created and whatnot, and made me suddenly go, I've got a bottle of that somewhere. So dug that one up and feel like a bit of a bourbon fest at the moment. Yeah,
I've got a lot of books on bourbon and American whiskey as a whole, and they're quite interesting. They're very different to the Scottish ones, because the Scottish ones like to paint a picture, and the bourbon ones are very almost like they're reporting on the Civil War, regimented about then this decision was made and then this decision was made. But yeah, I've been meaning to get around to watch Neat because I had a couple of screenings up at Paramount House, not far from where we are here, but I had events on the same night, and I saw that there was tickets going on for a virtual screening, but it sold out, which I didn't quite understand.
So it's actually not the screening. It's a tasting of a selection of whiskies, and then I believe the director and the producer of the film will be in there as well for a bit of a Q&A. So it's more watch the film beforehand and then do the chat and taste the whiskies as well. So because they're pretty limited whiskies, and Brock has gone into his own collection as well for some of these. So it was limited to how much you can get out of the bottle effectively.
So
Brock's account's one of my favorite American whiskey accounts. Like, damn, is phenomenal.
So how are you watching it then, Milne? Is it something? Can you go online and buy it on Google Play or?
Yeah, you can just download the film and buy it on iTunes or. Google Play or one of those. I think I bought it on Apple. So
Yeah, okay. Just your generic download wrench.
Your generic download film channel program of choice. Exactly.
So, and I know we're talking a lot of wine here early on, but I stumbled across, remember the Somme films about the kids trained to be the master of wine?
Yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, I highly recommend that to anyone who's interested in booze, because I think some of the experiences and the storytelling in that, correlate to a lot of things. But they've actually set up, I think it's somtv.com, and it's a streaming service, but just for wine documentaries. So I think that's what my weekend plan is going to be, to have a look, see how much I can get done in a 7-day free trial, and then go from there.
Because they did the other film, I think it was Netflix that was on, was Sour Grapes. And that was on the whole wine fraud scandal.
Yes, yes.
And the guy who was making more labels in his bedroom than the winery produced. But I thought that was, because I remember that story breaking when I was in the wine trade, and it was a huge moment in the industry.
Yeah. Rudy, whatever his name was, I forget.
Yeah.
I think it's on one of the streaming services. Another one that's worth watching, because when we bring this back into a whiskey context, unfortunately, I don't think we're far off globally from a similar sort of thing regarding fakes. So we've already seen it a little bit. And maybe that could be quite an interesting topic for, because I think we should dedicate quite a bit of time to that, about the concept of fakes and the experience of fakes. I know it's something that Joey and I have spoken a lot about on After Hours from a wine point of view. But yeah, interesting. So yeah, get back around. Neat is a documentary on bourbon. And yeah, so that's why I had this lying around a little bit, because I do love that history, that bottled in bond concept. And there's certainly, I think, some rules and some technical regulations that apply to the American whiskey industry that could come in handy for Australia as well, in terms of disclosures and that sort of thing. Could be quite interesting. But I also did go out to the back warehouse and I've got this box of samples and things that I have no idea what's in them and things. And it's one of those Scott's a wanker, feel really guilty about it type things, because I do get sent quite a bit of booze, and there's just not enough hours in the day to go through it all.
Cry me a river.
Yeah, I know. What an absolute wanker. But so I've picked out a bunch of samples at random here that I might go through tonight as well. From Newcastle Distilling's first ever barrel to a Glentockers by Zanzibar out of Germany. So
they are the best when you find those. Annoyingly, I need to get around to opening them. I have two samples. Both of them have the same label of Kalila or Talisker on both of them. And one of them is Kalila and one of them is Talisker, but I need to try them both to work out which one is which. And I'm not even sure whether I'll be able to tell which one is which.
I have an amazing packet of samples. They don't say what they are. They just say the ABV, the region, and I have about 13 of them. And so I've just been slowly going through them. However, I haven't been trying to guess what they are. I've just been enjoying them. I think we discussed last week that I'm absolutely shocking at that.
Yeah. I agree, but I think it's why I find those some films so fascinating, is because to pass this, master sommelier test, you need to be able to pick not just region and vintage, but like from anywhere in the world, but you need to know which parcel and who owns that particular line of vines in Burgundy, to that sort of stuff. So it's phenomenal stuff, and it's quite interesting to watch it happen. It looks very hard and boring to do, so I'd never do it myself, but it's good to watch other people do it.
It gets really intense. I studied through up to diploma in wine, and it was really exciting, really amazing. You're learning, and it's fascinating. And then you hit that point of you overanalyze every single detail of wine, and it's sort of I kind of had to. It kind of fell in at the right time that I actually moved from wine to spirits towards the end of that, and was able to come back into love with wine. But it did sort of get to me. I was like, I don't want to do my Master of Wine because I've lost that passion that actually I've studied it so intensely that I'm now just forgetting to just enjoy what's in my glass.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it was probably actually quite a good segue to what we're going to start talking about, but I've always resisted the urge to do any sort of formal education around booze, because I think that would just absolutely kill me and my passion for it, you know, but on the other side, because I got into it by just reading about it and I loved it so much, and that's how I fell into it. To have put rules around that, I think would ruin it for me. Alex, like you know, do you read a lot about whiskey, or like?
I actually don't read a lot. I prefer to listen, so podcasts, etc. However, I have always flirted with the idea of doing my distilling degree, so brewers and distillers. I've always flirted with it and just never quite found the time. I know now would be a perfect time to start before I start getting those comments from my mum, who's probably still watching. Just the application for that time at the moment with a full-time job as well could be a bit difficult. So
yeah,
always wanted to do it though.
Have you ever wanted to distill, Milne?
No, it's an area that I'm very, you know, I'm always interested about it, and it fascinates me. But the certainly in the UK side of things, where if you wanted to be a distiller, you had to disappear off to Scotland and do that. And so the location primarily was kind of, you know, I knew to me that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. So, you know, it never really appealed to go and do that because it was so much more remote. You know, obviously nowadays we've got distilleries in cities, and it's very different. But yeah, generally it fascinates me, and I think it's an incredible skill. But it's not my forte, and it probably won't be my skill.
Yeah, we do actually have some distillers jumping on the Facebook stream there. So quick g'day to Dan Woolley and to Lisa Truscott, who I've always admired, but never knew quite how good of a dancer she was until the Aussie Spirits auction, where it was absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful Ali joined in and watching us as well. Another
yes.
distiller.
And two of my favourite people, Kathleen Davies and big bad bustling Barry Melia, who is, I'm sure, even though I don't know how he would manage to do it, but even though all the cellar doors are closed, all the wine festivals are done, I'm sure he's sitting at a wine festival somewhere in the world. He's managed to find one because he doesn't live without things. Gary HN, love listening to podcasts. And yeah, that's been a real proliferation, I think, recently, not just in people listening to them, but people actually creating them. I mean, you look at this sort of stuff, we did one a week, and now we're doing one every night, basically.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a rush of people because the Society's stream has finished.
Way to feel second rate. Eh?
Yeah. But I think it's like, you know, we've had our dinner for tonight, and now we get to have dessert. Now we can have some real fun. Because Matt's going to not try and slum it with 75-year-old Malt Lukes and, you know, Klein Leashes that are actually brewers and that sort of shit.
Matt did the most wonderful thing. He saw me finish my bottle of Jack last week, my 1 litre bottle of Jack. And the next day I opened the door and there was a Dan Woolley's box.
No,
sorry, Dan Murphy's box. I always do that. Dan Murphy's box on my front door with another bottle of Jack in it, which was so lovely. So we've made some, I've made some dents in that this week.
Yeah, excellent. You love to see it, don't you? That's true whiskey love. That's what it's all about.
Love. Yeah, sending me more whiskey. Perfect.
Barry Melia is bringing the drops to him at the moment, so I like that. Can't go out to a whiskey festival. Bring the whiskey festival, the wine festival to your house.
Yeah.
Big fan of that sort of carry on. So yeah, we're expecting Matt Bailey to join us. If I can't remember if I invited him actually.
Is there any questions come through yet? Just want to fill in some time.
Well, I actually I put up a little bit of an Instagram story just before saying, hey, is there any questions you'd like to ask us tonight? And I got a few responses.
Don't read the response.
None of which I can repeat out loud actually live. So I'll go back to those individually. So no is the answer. So there's no questions. But maybe I'd like to throw out to people then, you know, we've been talking about, you know, books and movies and podcasts and that sort of thing. Is there any, now you've seen this as well, we spoke about this last week, but is there any favorite, content that people love to watch about whiskey? Now, the Amber Light that Dave Broom produced, I haven't seen that. Have you guys, I know, Alex, you've seen that?
I've seen it, yes.
What do you reckon?
Dave Broom actually just got home.
Okay.
He flew out and got home. He finally got out of New Zealand.
Good man.
Although he was saying he was leaving one of the safest places and heading home to uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yes.
His own bed.
Yeah.
All I can say is every single whiskey movie I watch, I sit there and I just cry. They are so magical just because of the story and the people in whiskey. So if I'm watching those sort of movies, I'm in it for that kind of content, like that pull on your heartstrings kind of stuff. So, and they're all so well directed that you just get that warm, fuzzy feeling, like if you were sipping on a glass of it while you're watching it.
It brings you into the world as well. I think, I've read, one of my leaving gifts when I left the UK was The Way of Whisky, which is one of Dave Broom's books on Japan that I can't get off my bookshelf.
Oh, no.
Oh, here comes trouble.
That one.
Oh.
Okay, yep. That's the Japanese one.
Yeah, so book on Japanese whiskey, but it is incredible, and it just brings you in because the photographer that is part of it as well. The level of photography in the book is incredible.
Scotty?
Yeah, mate.
You've disabled my video.
And you think that wasn't on purpose? No, we actually okay, what's going to happen here is I'm going to make you the host and hope that it doesn't kill the live stream.
It won't kill the live stream if you're doing it in Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. Because there was one button. You know how it's a lot of little buttons to tick and that sort of thing.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So if you can go in there and then just flick it back to me.
Oh, hey, handsome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hold on, before I do, I was just sitting here reading a book. What's this? The Way of Whiskey. Was someone just referencing this?
It's a great book, though, isn't it?
It's very good. Now, Mr. Lucardi will be in here in just a moment.
Yeah, cool. So I will. I'll make him a host as well, and we can play around with that. But a couple of things coming through. Whiskey is My Jam. The Three Drinkers on Amazon Prime TV series worth a look. Not fiction though. Do you guys remember a few years back? I think it was called The Angel's Share.
Yeah, Bal Blair.
Charles McLean was in. That was pretty good. And I always go back to Whiskey Galore.
Love that.
And actually, I love the movie for trying to pick out like names of whiskies on bottles, even if they're like fictional ones, just to sort of see what the producers and writers back then thought would be an appropriate whiskey to play with that. But then the book is excellent. I end up, when you read the Conor McKenzie book, you actually come out of it talking in a pseudo Scottish or Highland accent. The movie, we're trying to pick out like names of whiskies on bottles, even if they're like fictional. I think Sam might have the volume up on his computer there.
Why is he coming up as?
Whoop! I think I don't have my headphones in. Hang on, I'll rejoin.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to make you host. This is professional.
You forgot to tick a few boxes tonight, didn't you?
I did forget to tick a few boxes.
The Angel's Share film was primarily filmed at Bal Blair. And when I was up there last, they were chatting about the sort of the extras in the film. And basically, as they were filming, they continuously needed someone in production or someone to help, look like they're making whiskey and distilling. So there was lots of notes being slipped into the pockets of the distilling team while they were there. And actually, you wander around, you see all the team, and then watch the film again. You're like, oh yeah, that's the mash man, and that's the malter.
G'day, Sam. How are you?
Hey, Sam.
Now, Sam, just quickly, I made you the host, so if you could just return the favour and make me the host again so I can continue the stream.
How come he said his name is Matt Bailey as well?
Because I reckon you gave him your link.
I did.
And when I get back into being the host, I can actually change his name.
Yes, you can.
I can.
I should have changed yours when I had the opportunity. There you go.
That's right. Well, the second Matt Bailey is still the. I don't think we've got audio from you, Sam. But while we're working on Sam, can the real Matt Bailey please stand up and tell us exactly what he is drinking tonight?
No. I started with a TIB. It's the new one, the vatted malt that from Tim's new collection of things. That because it arrived today, so I cracked it today. It's vatted malt TIB vatting number 3, all sherry, 49.4%. I started with one of those, and now I'm over to Big Swell because I'm in a mood for vatted malts. So that was the 10-year-old SMWS blended malt. What else? What everyone else is drinking? What's going on tonight?
Well, we're in a bit of a. Well, Alex is smashing Sauvignon Blanc. I'm on bourbon. I'm on rye. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm on bourbon.
Had a bit of a question from the audience here from Hayden Dare. Following up from last week's roundtable, which none of us really remember. As a relatively new whiskey drinker, 3 years, is there benefit to watering down whiskey to the 20% mark to identify flavours? Remember last week we were talking about...
Oh, that was my fault, wasn't it?
Yeah, water and whiskey, and exactly, if you're, a lot of cellar masters will do that to try and evaluate casts and that sort of thing. I often have trouble identifying individual flavours. And remember last week there was a discussion with Peter Bigman around this topic. Yeah. Honestly, personally, I don't. I'm definitely not the person who is excellent at picking out 20 pages worth of tasting notes, but I do know whether I like something or not, which I think for me is the most important thing.
I think different things come out at different levels. I find that at high strength, you get that more tertiary, earthy, your spices, your kind of richer flavors. And as you bring it down, the softer kind of fruit comes forward at 20%. So at 20%, I pick out more of that sort of orchard fruits and really kind of like floral notes that you wouldn't get at a higher ABV because all those other elements are masking it and blocking it up. So it's useful to pick out other flavors, but I find it's often too low to, you're not getting the full story. You're getting kind of a half picture of elements. I think for analyzing spirit, it's great. For drinking, you're losing half of what you poured in your glass.
I couldn't agree more. It's the same with new makes, whether it be mature spirit or new make.
Yeah.
Assessing it at those new make samples that I assessed at Loch Lomond were a great example. How we assessed 7 or 8 different new make versions of new make from Loch Lomond Distillery and their different spirit runs. I think we assessed them all at 15 or 16% ABV. It's just ideal for picking up all the flaws and all the flavors in what's going on there. Well, in new make's case, not really many flaws, but yeah.
So it's sort of we've been dancing around this topic about appreciating whiskey and that sort of thing, and I want to row back a little bit to sort of have a chat about, I think, something that's good that I think you touched on in the society stream just before, about how we got into these greatest jobs in the world that we all currently enjoy. Like, how did we luck into this? Who did we kill, and where are the bodies buried? And I think it's a good time to introduce Sam into the round table.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. For those playing at home, Sam is the brand ambassador for the McHenry Distillery in Port Arthur down in Tasmania, and he's 12 years old, which is quite phenomenal. So it's really tough being a brand ambassador.
Like what?
Not being able to drink the product you're talking about or let into all the venues that are allowed to, stock the product that you're there to sell and promote. So
I do get ID checked every time I go into Dan Murphy's for a meeting.
You'll love to see it.
It's brilliant because they're like, "Oh, can we check your ID?" And I'm in my full McHenry gear, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm here for a meeting." And they're like, "Oh no." So yeah, it's a great. I'm so lucky to be 23 and to be working in this industry. So yeah, I'm pretty privileged, and it's great. And
Alex's face says it all.
Yeah, I just love it. Like some days I was saying before, I need to pinch myself. Like when you meet these amazing people, like to talk to you guys and just like, this is awesome. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess here's a good a place as ever to start. We'll go through everyone, but like, how did you fall into this? You know, who's, you know, what's the relation, you know, what's going on there? How did you get into whiskey?
Basically, I started buying bottles of Smirnoff, and then I started, basically, I was telling Matt before, the first ever bottle I bought was Smirnoff Gold vodka with the gold flakes. And then I started to buy different bottles because I thought they looked pretty. And then I passed my first uni exam and bought Glenfiddich 12. And then that's how I started drinking whiskey. I started an Instagram account. That sort of took off a bit. And then someone actually taught me how to drink some really cool stuff. And from then on, I did my uni degree, which is in politics and sociology. And then, I was on Seek, and the McHenry job came up, and that was my first ever interview and my only ever interview. So, yeah, it's a weird little progression, but I'm pretty happy to be where I am today and to sort of look after the whole of the mainland at 23 and to be on the whiskey tasting panel, to be let loose in the Bond store whenever I go down there. I actually can't believe it sometimes, but it's a great privilege, and I can't thank the Bills enough.
So, but you say your first job interview, so your only job interview there, but you must have done Macca's or Woolies or something.
I worked for Delaware North, so the big hospo company. So I used to work at the tennis. So that was a really cool, I think that gave me a great understanding of the hospitality industry, being behind the counter, working in that environment. It gives you such a great sort of place to then go into the brand ambassador and to, you know, when not to go into a restaurant, you know, when to not go into a bar, and you know when they're not having a great day because you've been there. So that gave me a great base to sort of work from.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You knew more about when not to go there than when to go.
Yes. Yeah. I think because I think that's the biggest thing, because you don't want to annoy people. You want to keep people happy. And so you just didn't want to,
Yeah. Bounced a few out in my life at the wrong time.
You know you're failing when you walk in. It's just like,
What?
And Alex, did you sort of get into whiskey via hospitality or hospitality via whiskey, or pretty concurrently, or?
Always drank whiskey, but have been in hospitality. Started washing dishes at 14 in a catering company, and then worked up by 16. I was running catering gigs, going out and feeding hundreds of people on times that I can, just to feed a horse addiction as a child. Then did a nursing.
Was that riding or eating horse?
That's the first thing I thought.
Definitely riding. I did my nursing degree and put myself through nursing bartending. And again, by the end of sort of my degree, I ended up running the place. And just when you realize that you struggle, you spend 4 days trying to write an essay, you can sit down at the end of the night and write 800 words in a nightly report, and the owners have to come back to you and go, hey, you can just cut them down a little bit. The way that the report writing came out, telling the story about the night, just kind of sold it for me that that's where I needed to be. And whiskey was a passion, and just kind of all fell into place. So yeah, I remember for like my 30th birthday, God, I'm actually going to show my age right now. For my 30th birthday, the team where I was so beautiful. They saved up and they got me the most expensive, most prestigious bottle of whiskey they could get me. And it was absolutely amazing that they did it. And they got me a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. And it was just beautiful. So that was my 30th birthday present from my team.
Very cool.
I was not working in whiskey venues then. I was working in pubs. So
I'm like, it's not something that we stock here, but I have no issue with the Johnny Walker Blue label, and you know, I actually think
it's a great whiskey. It's a perfectly constructed whiskey.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It's perfectly constructed, but I also think it says a lot about a gifter. You know, like if you receive that as a gift, someone's put a bit of thought into that, and it's a level, and there's, you know, it's not the cheapest booze on the shelf, but you know, there's sort of level of commitment to the gift giving from the gifter that I quite like with that.
Yeah, I was incredibly appreciative. It's amazing. I actually still got the bottle. It's unopened and it's in my treasure box.
Nice.
It is now like an entire carton or crate of all my whiskies that I just can't.
Milne, what's What's the stepladder in the UK?
Mine was quite fun. I needed, so I worked in bars during university when I was at university, and then I grew up in a village, and so every time I used to go home in the holidays, the first holiday, my mum got me a job at the local farm shop selling Christmas trees, and that was great, but quite seasonal. So the second time I came back at Easter, a friend of mine who had a bottle shop just said, look, we need some help. Do you want to work part-time in the bottle shop while you're here? So did 3 years of retail with them in holidays, when it was convenient to them. Moved back home when I finished my degree, moved to London and got a job working in a big wine retailer there. Again, just working in retail initially, and then that moved me to working in events and sponsorship. I ran around with the England cricket team for 2 years, running wine bars and doing some things with Classic FM. And then all of that sponsorship ended. The company changed MD, and the new MD decided that spending a few million on the fun of cricket probably wasn't financially that sensible. So I was short of a job, and at the right time, the Whisky Exchange came around and said, look, we need someone to run the Whisky Show. Do you want to come on in? So yeah, I just built up through the years and did 5 years with them, and that got me here. But whiskey was always a passion to a degree of mine. I think I discovered whiskey before I got into the job, and knew I loved it. But I mean, my parents are from Scotland. We went every single year that I was alive. And so as a child, I think my first distillery was Glendronach, aged 5. So I was around in amongst it from a very early age. So I blame them for my problems now, because I just say, well, you did this to me. If I have any, if I end up having any health issues due to alcohol, then they're to blame because they put me in it at an early age.
I know it's not the most important thing at the moment, but I do miss cricket right now.
Yeah,
I really miss cricket. I just want that one to be just hanging there for a little bit.
Perfectly mediocre smell you've dropped out there. It's good.
Yeah.
I play in the booziest cricket team. There's Luke McCarthy and Andrew Baker and myself.
I was about to say, are you in Baker's cricket team?
I am in. That's sort of another reason I got into the industry. I went to Baker's tasting, and he's like, "We need a wicketkeeper. Are you a wicketkeeper?" And I was like, "Yes." And that's another way I got into it. So yeah,
I guess that whole grade cricket scene, they do feel sorry for each other quite a bit there. It's pretty tough going playing fourths in East Melbourne.
Yes.
Now I think probably the biggest mystery of all is how Matt Bailey got his job in whiskey, and not only that, but in the Scotch, such a prestigious organisation like the Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
It's amazing that he was employed alone.
Yeah, I like. If I was
such a vote of confidence.
If I was Macca's, I'd be like, putting the fries, because flipping the burgers, that would be a little bit difficult, I think. So just dropping the fries into the thing. But,
just salt them at the end. It's fine. Yeah.
Do not listen to them. Do not listen.
I can take it because it's Scotty, so it's just the words bounce off me. It's fine. My role and my getting into this industry is the joke in this all is that Scotty and I have led parallel lives in a very, very strange way, in that we both, even before this, we both worked in the music industry for a number of years, and we even sort of dealt with each other, but not really in those roles. I dealt with his associate and not Scotty directly, because he was just a grunt. So
you should have dropped out like me, because my degree was in music. I got to the point of, do I pursue this as a career? As a bassist, it's pretty hard to back it up with teaching. I was like, I don't want to do session work every night.
I still play trumpet. I still love playing. It's just that I ended up working, rather than playing as a musician, I'm working in the music industry for a while and wasn't playing so much. But My background, much like Sam, in the way I've never come from a background of bartending or of hospitality. My background was in marketing and business development, and that was sort of where my background was in all that sort of side of things, and which is why I still can't stir a drink properly, and me shaking a cocktail shaker looks ridiculous. I don't have the action.
So you're struggling with the squeezing limes the other day, weren't you?
Yeah, you know what? You can make comment about my squeezing limes in that other video, but it was lemon, by the way, and it was fine. Anyway,
I want to know I don't want to know what you do with your limes in isolation, mate. You leave that to yourself.
It was a cocktail video I did. Anyway, much like Scotty, he and I were both doing at the same time. Like, we were both doing bits and bobs of work for different groups, and for the Oak Barrel and for Alba Whisky and a few other mobs. I ended up being the Sydney rep for Alba, which was a role I took off from Dave Withers, and then did some work for a distillery in Tasmania, and then end up running Wonder and Whisky, which was a much like you were doing a Dram Club. It was a private and corporate tastings of whiskey events around Sydney and Melbourne, where I'd cart glassware and whiskey to people's houses, to people's restaurants, to people's all over the place, and that was great fun. And I struck a partnership with Luke Mangan Group with his restaurants, and we had 5 of his restaurants doing their pairings and tastings and everything like that around Sydney, and P&O for their cruises, and it was great. And then the society sort of took notice about what I was doing, and that's the rest is history. I've been with the SMWS now for 5 years almost, and so it's like that was sort of like that was the launch pad was Wonder and Whisky and Alba and that Tasmanian distillery. But it came from a marketing background. I was a marketing manager at ANAM and for Melbourne University and a few other places. But yeah.
There's a bit of back and forth happening on the Facebook here at the moment, with a lot of people having a chat, and I think there's a few comments there saying that how much Alex loves cricket, and yes, we all agree there. I'm a big cricket fan. But
any of these yet?
Dave and or Caroline Taylor put out the question to what's everyone's favourite Australian whiskey at the moment, and even though we haven't got onto it yet, there's been a bit of chatter there. Phil Brooks is liking the Bakery Hill Doublewood, which we can definitely agree. I saw I just can't find it in the scroll right now, but there was a Fanny's Bay Pinot Cars. There was a couple others. I think Ali Ez, distiller out at the Curry Distillery, is talking about a bit of Christmas gin, a bit of McHenry Christmas gin, which wasn't the question asked. It was Australian whiskey, Ali, but that's all right. We can look at
sparkles in it. That's why.
4 years ago, I travelled over to the States with Wild Turkey.
Yes, I've seen this.
Sorry?
I've seen your photo of this, yeah.
And I took a bottle of McHenry, the Russell Reserve barrel,
yes,
barrel-aged gin over and handed it to Jimmy and Eddie Russell.
That's unreal. That's actually amazing.
And we had, we were talking about with Peter last week that I met him at Grain Bar through Nip of Courage. And William, also was there that night as well.
That's really cool.
All of the distillers, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen that photo on Facebook, and I was like, that's our bottle. I was like, wow, this is really cool.
It's 4 years ago.
I know.
I just was scrolling through, going, "Shit, I am old."
But I think that's the best thing about the industry we're in, is just that those quirky stories that sort of come out of it.
Yeah,
I think it's we've probably actually touched on me a little bit too much in the past few episodes, so I won't talk about my entry, but it's very similar to Matt Bailey's in that did Macca's at 14 and 9 months in high school. Went through high school dreading weekends because that would mean I have to work and was much prefer to go to school. So I swore to myself I'd never do a job I hated. So blagged myself my way into JB Hi-Fi, which turned into writing about music because I couldn't play the stuff, into running, whiskey tastings for private groups and for small groups like Matt before, the Oak Barrel job popped up. But I think like a constant across all the stories is like, we didn't go to university to do a whiskey course and then come out 3 years later and get a job coming up with the rations. There's an element of, the hustle and the graft to really, if you want to work full-time in whiskey, the jobs are so scarce and they're very difficult to to find that you've got to really want it. And I think from my point of view, that's why I love this industry so much, because everyone who is here and has been here for a long time or wants to be here for a long time has worked quite hard to get here and is going to work quite hard to stay here. And it's not about me versus you. It's about how do we grow whiskey as a category so that we can all be here moving forward.
I've always said that, and it's been
I
said,
think it's
mentioned multiple times, that I got into whiskey because I love whiskey. I've literally stayed in whiskey because of the people, and the stories and the great people you meet. And one of my biggest things, I have teams, like part of my teams come in and say, like, how do we get into the whiskey industry? How do we get to the point of ambassador or going to all these events? And it is just literally going to anything and everything that's on, meeting people, getting to know them, trying all the whiskey, learning as much as you can. I spent, and still do to this day, I spent 6 years listening to every single ambassador there was. If there was a tasting, I was there. If there was an event, I was there.
Yeah.
Half of the Tasmanian distillers, the poor old bastards, not saying they're all old, but the amount of times that I've pinned them and just like questions left, right and centre. Some of them have, like I've actually mentioned before, if you need a safe word with me, let me know, but I'm just going to keep asking questions. And it's one of the cool things about this industry is if you want to learn, there's so many people that are just going to cough up that knowledge.
Yeah. And it's the willingness to go and learn and be. It's interesting how it's changed. I think when I was starting in whiskey, sort of 7, 8 years ago, the gang that I was sort of looking up to then, everyone worked for the same wine retailer or spirit retailer in the UK, and it was there's a shop called Oddbins. And it was interesting, basically, sort of everyone came from this same platform, and it was a really good independent retailer, and just was that platform for everyone to go, cool, I've learned, I've educated. Fewer and fewer that we're getting those independent retailers now that, you know, actually are bringing in this whole class of people up.
Yep.
Into the ranks. It's you know, there's fewer.
I want to throw a question out there, because we had Peter Bignell on as a special guest last week, who is a distiller and a very apt and very, you know, prolific distiller. But we are now 5 members of the whiskey industry that, even though there's some overlaps, are all pretty much in different areas of the business now. What, you know, I know, Milne, we asked you this question. For the others here, have you ever thought or sort of looked towards going towards distilling? You know, has that ever come across you? Alex says yes.
It's an obsession. And one day I'll just run away and start distilling, or find a distillery that'll take me, and I'll be gone and I'll just be making whiskey. Or I'll be making spirit that will become whiskey and grow up.
I've never had that desire. I've never had the desire to actually want to make whiskey. I'm perfectly happy for those with a brain and a predilection to want to make it well.
We've got Crafty in here saying no, there's no money in it.
That's the real reason none of us are distillers. Real broke.
No, I just the money part aside, I've never had that. I've never had the I thrive in and get excitement on placement and branding and marketing and content and this kind of stuff. I just don't really care, and being an ambassador, of course, I just don't really care for making it.
Yeah, it's an absolute love of mine. One day I'll just have a horse, a dog, paddock, maybe some barley. My dad will probably retire on wherever I am, and he can grow the barley in 100 acres, and I'll just.
Well, it's what's always fascinated me about you, Alex, is that the knowledge that you have. It's almost, you can tell that you want to go into that side, because, you know, I think we talked about this ages ago. I have palate memory, and I can remember whiskies that I've tasted. But you tell me the run or the size of the wash still or the, you know, temperature that you're running through at. I'm just like, no clue. And you're just like, that's everything I know. That's all the stuff I know.
Oh, the distilleries in Scotland, and I mean, even when I was over with Westwood and Wild Turkey and Woodford, I literally got in there and was just every single distilling question. And people were like, I'm just going to get someone for you. So, yeah.
You're a special person for people like you. So.
Yeah.
I annoy the bills at work by doing that. And I think I'm lucky because I get to actually distill when I'm down there.
Yeah.
And being a millennial, I can't afford a house, so I can't afford a distillery. So I just do that.
Everyone's saying all the cleaning that happens.
Yeah. I think that sort of
Stills, yeah.
That sort of sounds. I'm in the Matt Bailey boat of thought that even though I love distilleries, I love vision, I love the smell, I love the way they look, I love the way bond houses smell and look, and I'm everything about it. But it's like visiting my nephew and very small children. I love them, but I love giving them back at the end of the day. And like, there's a lot of cleaning, there's a lot of expenses, and like, it's actually quite a boring job is distilling. You sit there and monitor pressures and that sort of thing. And I think if I was like leaning towards distilling, that would be not being honest to what I originally fell in love with whiskey about. We sort of go back to how we did this. I was buying bottles of whiskey I knew nothing about, sitting at home, buying books and reading about the history. And I love the storytelling and the history and saying, why does this taste like it does? Because this happened and it was distilled this. And I think that comes along in my, when I present events and that sort of thing. I think, I present very different to what Dave Withers did before me here at the Oak Barrel, where he was talking about technical aspects and I talk about, completely different things and, nowhere near as heavy on tasting notes. So I think that would be, I do quite a shit job at it. So it's not something
and you can tell this, there's been quite a few events that I've been to hosted by distillers in Scotland. And certainly, the really technical, fascinating ones, they're giving you this most amazing science, and it's incredible science. And you're like, wow, you can do this with a distillery. That's ridiculous. But you then sort of go, but I'm lacking the charisma a bit here, because what you're really passionate about is that section there. And it's a phenomenal skill when you get the distillery manager or the distiller that's able to bring you into that world with the same passion that we all have, without being an absolute geek about it all. It's it's a really I
love on that note, like when I have distillers in and they walk into Mjolner just before they're about to do like a masterclass in there, and they sit there and go, right, so how am I going to take in this? Am I taking this ultra nerd, or am I taking like drinking value? And with like most of our guests, we're ultra nerd, like go down that track. But I love that they've learned. They're like, am I keeping this like drinking, or am I going full force with the nerd out?
I'd never ask that. I just do that. Like I just like to read the crowd on those kind of things. Like I've learned that the hard way. But if you're talking to a crowd, no, but it's true. Like if you're talking to the crowd and you're going like,
you do.
We're talking about like still temperatures and whatnot, and then and then suddenly someone goes, what's the difference between a blend and a single malt? You go, okay, I need to wind it right back here and start again. And
it takes it's a great skill to learn how to read that room. It took me ages.
I think that's actually one of the guiding rules of what it means to be an ambassador is to it's not, you're not just doing a monologue, you're not presenting it just a tasting. It's like you're reading the room just like you would if you were networking at a room or whatever you're doing. You're just like getting a feel from what the people are doing, how they're reacting, how you're talking to them.
I think that's a really good point as well. What you two are just talking about then is that these are all different skills that require very different skill sets. There is a couple of people in the world maybe that I've at least come into contact with that are great distillers, great blenders, great public speakers, and great marketeers. Generally, the best distiller is not going to be the best at any of those other things. The best marketeer is not going to be the best at distilling. And so, like, particularly in our industry in Australia, there's, big cost implications of being able to hire staff and, the sheer cost of setting up a distillery. So I totally understand it, but I think that's where we sort of need to move to. And you see it with someone like Starwood and now Archie Rose, who are getting to that level, who can have people like, Dave Withers and the whole distilling team there. And then you can have people like, at least for New South Wales, Daniel Hutchins-Reid, who I consider to be one of the best brand ambassadors in the country, regardless of what he's talking about. Like, you look at that and you go, like, that is a really, really good team. Then you see, like, the events managers and the marketeers, and you go, shit, like, that's a really formidable whiskey team, not just the distillers, but the whole way through. So I think that's really important. And it's one of the hardest things sometimes, I think, is to acknowledge that as a distiller, or even as someone like myself, if I sort of had delusions of grandeur, like, I know everything there is to know about whiskey and I go and do it. No, I definitely don't. And I would be shit at most of the other bits that aren't talking. And
it's the sum of the parts. It's the sum of the parts. Just like, I don't think an ambassador should be a salesperson, but at the same time, I also don't think an ambassador can distill whiskey either. And, we've, not to name names, but we've seen, and I mean company names, we've seen some distilleries where, it's like a distilled spirit from someone who is not a distiller, and you taste it and you're like, well, that's not good. So that's kind of like you see that happen. And so it's like, there's the sum of the parts. Like, I wouldn't pretend to even know the first thing about it. You could plop me in a distillery and I wouldn't know what to do. Like, isn't like, have a rough idea where what goes where, but it's like, I wouldn't know what to run at what temperature and which level and stuff. So just like they wouldn't know how to read a room. And you've seen that, like you're saying, you've seen distillers talk in front of a room of people, and it's kind of like, it can be,
Yeah, I mean, maybe the only exception to that is Alta Vane, where I think you go in, plug the key in, and press go, and then it does the rest for you.
It's a bit like
it was built to be run by two people on shifts, basically. Like, but apart from that,
it's
modern Abelard as well.
It is fascinating. Like, Speyburns run the same way. It's all through a computer, and it is, as much as I love the hands-on approach, and I think it's a skill that needs to stay in use, and people need to still have those jobs so that we don't lose that vital knowledge set. It is also fascinating to sit and just look at how a distillery can be run off a computer, and you're just watching this and just going, wow, like this, the level of sort of information that you have here is phenomenal. Do I want, do you get unusual and interesting and quirky things as a result? No, you get consistency every step of the way. You're not going to get those wild and wonderful and funky moments, but you are going to get a consistently good quality product.
Just to comment on a few people commenting in the Facebook here, one side of the business we probably don't have represented tonight is distributing. And so, like, you've got people like Kathleen Davies, who's, I think, agreeing with what myself and Matt was saying about not really having that urge to distill, but loving the product. And as Sam, you were saying earlier, Kathleen knows how to walk into a bar or a bottle store and say, hey, you don't know what this is, whereas a distiller may not know that.
It's a different temperament. It's a totally
different
100%.
skill set.
And you can't learn that overnight. On that same note, Crafty has just outlined his job description at the moment is brewer, distiller, miller, debt collector, sales and marketing, cleaner, and more cleaning. But then, like, from that point of view, and we all know Craftworks, and we spent a lot of time talking about the last Joey and Scotty stream we did, but that is part of the appeal of, I think, Craftworks, because that one person has touched all of those processes, and sorry, Crafty, for better or worse, that's part of the appeal, right? But you're never going to get a Starwood or an Archie Rose letting the distiller walk into a bar and then try and host a counter tasting and walk into a chain store and that sort of thing. So I think there's two different elements, but what we're sort of talking about is sort of the bigger end of town a little bit.
I think we need every single one of us in this industry to get it out the way we are at the moment. We need the distillers, we need the marketing, we need the distribution, we need the ambassadors, we need the bartenders mostly, and we need the people. I think it's a great collaborative effort trying to get it all out and into our mouths.
No one person can sell it. I'm passionate about Indian whiskey. I used to work with two Indians who were very passionate about Indian whiskey, and it's one of the hardest things ever to sell. And it's, you sit there and go, this is amazing liquid, this is delicious. And every person along this process looks at you blank and goes, what? You break down the barrier of, oh my God, they make whiskey in India. Didn't know that. And it's okay. Is it actually any good? Okay, right. oh, that's quite nice. Oh, that's the same price as Scotch. I might just go and buy the Scotch instead. It's impossible.
It's a safe bet and new market approach. And I'm reminded of at the society we've bottled a few Paul John casks that have been. That I'll admit they are not cheap because of the case of being Paul John whiskies. And even when I was working at Alba, we were representing Amrut.
Yeah,
and I think that both Amrut, Paul John, Rampur, they all make interesting whiskey, and that it is often it is a hard sell. I think.
Yeah.
Well, maybe so much. I'm only talking Australian market because we just.
No, I think in most markets, it's relying on someone at every step of the process to talk to their customer and love it. And it's I can get the sales team to get it into bars and get it into bottle shops and things. Yep. But if the people in the bottle shop and the bars aren't then going to the consumers and saying, "This is amazing, you should try this. Have you thought about trying this?" There's no point in being there because it will sit and gather dust, and we'll be left going, "Yeah, well, we sold a load and we haven't sold any more in the last year."
Yeah.
Just on that, and at the risk of going down a tangent, which is has never happened on this show before.
No.
We were actually the Oak Barrel was we bottled a cask of Paul John, cask 987, a few years ago. Yep. And at the time, I was actually living out west in a place called Wentworthville, which is actually the center of the universe on the axis as it revolves around. In the last, I think it was pretty sure the last census, it was the population of Wentworthville. There was more people living in Wentworthville that were born in India than any other country, including Australia. I think we're Australian born, including the second generation Indians. We were about 41%. They were about 50 something. And so I remember talking to people at the time when we were bottling that whiskey and we're bringing it over. I was like, okay, if I can't make this happen, like if I can't sell Indian whiskey to the Indians, then I'm doing something wrong and I need to go look for another job. But the problem was that the population was out there just outside of Parramatta, and there's two venues at Wentworthville. There's the Wenny Hotel, which is, stuck in 1970, and Wentworthville Leagues Club, which is actually the epicenter of the known universe. But it's a big leagues club. So there was actually, and even, going back a few years, you didn't have Uncle Kurt's, you didn't have sorry, I forget the name of the Champagne Shower Mjolner restaurant that you helped set up, Alex. I'm sorry, I forget the name. No, the one in Parramatta.
Oh, Nick and Nora's.
Yeah, Nick and Nora's. Thank you. Sorry, mind blank. But those places didn't exist. So
Thank you.
I really had an issue with trying to find a venue to host some sort of tasting out there. So that was an interesting point. But I mean, on that note, Sam, you're peddling a Tasmanian whiskey. Like we know Mick Henry's been around for longer than most Australian whiskies, let alone Tasmanian whiskies.
How many years is it now?
10 years this year. So, yeah, no 10th birthday party now, but we'll have a 10 and a half birthday.
Yeah. And beautiful, beautiful part of the world on the side of Mount Arthur there, but managed to find the only sort of microclimate in Scotland, in Australia. So whiskey takes quite a long time to mature there. Say we're a bar team or something, like how do you go into someone who's dipping their toes into Australian whiskey? I've heard that Tasmanians make whiskey or something like that. Like, how do you tell that story of something new, like what Milne was trying to do with Indian whiskey to the Scottish? It's
really hard because of how long it does take to age. We probably are a little bit behind, and that's just that. But the gin gets us in. And that's the beauty of being a gin distillery, is the gin, people know about that, and then they try the whiskey. And that's probably the advantage of having such a big portfolio of gin, is that most bars know McHenry gin, the slow gin especially. That gets us in, and then that's my way to sell the whiskey. So, yeah, that little clear spirit and that slow gin, that gets me into a lot of different places and different events.
I love that slogan, the gin gets us in.
Yes.
Can we get that on T-shirts?
Oh, I think so. I love puns. Like
whiskey round table on the back. The gin gets us in.
And then, the gin gets us in, and then whiskey makes us frisky.
Yes.
Hey, yeah.
Did we just get a round table shirt?
Round table.
I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, but yeah, it is a challenge because the Australian market is so changing, and because our product is very different and unique due to the aging process, it's a bit of a harder sell. But it's really rewarding personally when you do get someone to buy it and they taste it. And that's the beauty of doing tastings.
Yeah. Couple of comments that distillers saying, Scotty, you're calling my job boring. And yes, I kind of am, but I'm so glad you do it and not me. And that's why we love you. And of course, farmers as well. None of us are here without farmers or whiskey drinkers. I have to go back and get a real job, which I really don't want to have to do. So thank you for everyone that keeps me outside of a real job. Sorry, commenting there. Yeah, I mean, we talked about whiskey. That's an interesting point about the gin, because that's probably not an easier sell, but it's a lower price point. It's not as big of a gamble for someone to take on.
It is.
We all work not exclusively in whiskey now, do we? Essentially, apart from Milne, probably. I think you only work on Scotch portfolio. You only work with Scotch brands.
No,
tequila as well. Sorry, don't you? Yeah.
I got Scotch, Irish, Japanese, Indian whiskey, tequila, liqueurs, bitters, vodka.
I mean, and we're here on a whiskey roundtable, not a spirits roundtable or a Armagnac roundtable or a tequila or a gin roundtable, whatever it is. So, I mean, throwing it out there, why do you think it is? What is it about whiskey that makes it the thing that we sort of say, so which spirit do you love the most? And you kind of go, whiskey.
The magic of it.
Yeah, you're in a gin judging panel. You go, oh shit, I wish it was whiskey sometimes. Like, what do you think it is about whiskey that has made us all fall in love with it and sort of dominates our job, even though we work across a lot of things?
I think it's the story behind it for me. That's what got me into it, was that it's not like gin where it can be produced in one day. It goes through this. This is where you get a bit airy-fairy, but it sits in the barrel and you don't know what it's going to be like. And for me, that's super exciting. And that sort of drew me in. And I think it's seen as, this project that you have to wait for. And it's a really cool product that you don't know what's going to be. And that's the excitement for me.
We've lost Scotty.
It's for the best.
There he is.
Sorry, I was just clearing my empties away.
Sure, mate.
Ooh.
I'm moving on. Alex?
Go to Matt.
I saw your face react to that question when I asked it.
Go to Matt first. Pass to Matt. Go.
How is it taking till episode 3 for you to bring out that face, Matt? Can we get that one again? Yeah, I don't know what that is. If we're on a 10-second delay here, can we get a quick screen grab from someone in the crowd on that one?
Why whiskey? Is that the question?
No, but I guess because you like the society bottles, Armagnacs and rums and cognacs and other things these days.
Yeah.
So even gins, yeah. So what is it about whiskey that maybe dragged you in first and sort of kept your heart for this when you started working full time in spirits?
I was 16, and my grandfather.
He was 18 and 1 day old.
I was 18 and 1 day old for the sake of Drinkwise and our friends over at Drink Responsibly. My grandfather I was about to say at the time because it changed. No, my grandfather, I came home from a New Year's Eve party. It was the first time I think I was, went on a New Year's Eve party or something. And, like outside, you're allowed to go out because you're 15 or 16. It's like, yeah, cool, whatever. And I came home at like 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. and my grandfather poured me a tumbler to the brim full with Johnny Walker Black Label. And he filled it right to the top, like because he was off his face, and he poured half a bottle into this glass, and I didn't know how to drink it, so I just went, well, I mean that's how you enjoy it, just like a beer or a water, right? And I didn't sleep very well as a result. It
does explain a lot, though.
It does explain a lot, doesn't it? Really, when you think about it. No, but that was like the entry point for me. That was the turning point, maybe because I just enjoyed the flavor of it, and it was sort of like I've always enjoyed the flavor of things like rums and cognacs and armagnacs and things like that, but nothing that fully encompassed that the richness and the I don't know. It's just a personal preference, and I don't know why that is, but it's just what it is. I've never really thought about that too much, to be honest. I've just sort of like even the world's best armagnacs and cognacs or whatever. It's like Yes, I love them. Like you present me like an old Ile de Ré cognac or something like that. Unbelievable. I'll confess, but I still will come back to whiskey. Just as there's people who are gin fanatics, just as people who are cognac fanatics, there's always one spirit for those who like spirits that I think people will come back to.
I think it's the knowledge base that you build up as a result of that passion. Because I think that I had a love for whiskey and I was interested and I learned more. And then working with Sukhinder, I learned heaps more. And it was just all of a sudden you're just like, my God. And the bottles that he used to just pull out of his collection and just sort of said, do you want to understand why Macallan is so popular? He's just like, yes. He's like, right, here's a 1960s 100 proof 10-year-old. And you're like, okay, right. And he's like, this is what made them what they are. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Shit, that's amazing.
Oh, and it's the same for me.
And you build that base. And I've had far more opportunities to have that with whiskey than I have with Armagnac and with cognac. And I think that's just why probably agave is my second biggest passion, is because I've met all those people again where I get that same thing of let me teach you about this, let me talk to you about this, let me tell you about this, and it's their knowledge has been infectious onto me, and you kind of just bring it in and sap it all up. And I just there's not enough. I think it's partly to what's commercially available. I think that's why we're seeing a huge amount of gin fans now. There was never someone going, I'm really into my gin 5-10 years ago. But there is now, because there's loads of people going out and telling them about why gin's amazing and what's great about it. And it's, there's not enough people, unfortunately, in cognac. And that was one of the last things I did before I left the UK was set up the cognac show, because for that same reason, we didn't have producers. Actually, we realized that the big four, Martel, Remy, Courvoisier, and Hennessy, have never been in the same room together at an event. Never.
Really?
In the UK. And we were just like, this is ridiculous. It's like, you should all learn from each other. And it's like, now we tend to not do things collaboratively. And, I'm sure in France there's probably a slight difference there, but it is that thing, if you don't bring it to us, then we're not going to get as excited about it. We can only develop our knowledge so far, but it's it's going to your event, Scotty, and going to to see one of your tastings, Sam, one of your tastings, Matt, and going, wow, I'm learning all this, and this is amazing information. And Alex, you run a whiskey bar. There's not many people that run cognac bars.
You touched upon a word very early on, and just monitoring the comments here. I'm not going to read out them all, but we talk about from Gary, from Hayden, from Crafty, from David, and/or Caroline. The one word that keeps coming up is passion. Whichever way they said it, there's the word passion, and it's right. And I think almost it's when you look at it, it's probably most evident in bars, because if you come to an oak barrel tasting or a society tasting, you've already opted in. You've already said, I'm buying a ticket or I'm spending my night doing that. You might walk into a bar and say, hey, I'm looking for a drink, and have some bartender like Alex almost jump across the bar to yell and to shake you and tell you about whiskey.
Apparently I'm not a bartender, Scotty. I've heard that a couple of times in the last 6 months.
You're not a bartender?
Apparently not. Go on.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
are you a cocktologist?
So that's even worse. If she's just hanging around and she's managed to sneak behind the bar and she jumps across to shake you. And I think that sort of takes, and like people say, oh, whiskey, they see a whiskey and you go, great. And they see some bartender just unload knowledge and they just go, well, that was way too much. I'm never going to take that in. But I think that's part of it. Is sort of what you were saying before, Alex. And, what Sam, I'm sure you've done your fair share of takeovers and that sort of stuff. It's that there is too much knowledge and history in my head that I need to get out to you. So I'm going to do it as quickly as possible.
My first tasting it was good, but I don't think I made sense half the time because I was just so excited. I was like, I need to tell people information. I was like, they need to know about the grain varietal and the still size. And I'm like, no, they're just here to probably just drink. And
my first tasting, 8 whiskeys, 8 different distilleries, 3 hours.
That's big.
That's
and in the first,
it's better than 8 in an hour.
Richard Blanchard was there. It was for a magazine, and there was 80 people there. For the first 3 minutes, I was super fucking nervous, like you would not believe. And then all I did was this. I shut my laptop because I was trying to like look at my notes, and I was just like, "Fuck it, shut it." 3 hours I talked straight for, and all I did was pick up the bottle. And just talked and explained filling and everything like that. Under no circumstances do I think I could ever repeat that class, but it was just a moment of I talked for 3 fucking hours, and it comes back to that one thing is passion. For me.
But it's the skill set to get there. It's interesting how everyone learns. A lot of people, it's you learn from experience and you learn from doing that. But I wondered, Matt, if you're sort of coming from a music background, it's performing in front of other people is part of being a musician.
I do treat it like a performance. I absolutely treat it like a performance every time.
But also, I think, Matt, you've learned a lot from your OnlyFans account as well in the last couple of years.
This guy.
What's the name? No.
I was trying to keep a straight face to that one, and I couldn't quite. I had to crack.
No. I treat it like a performance, Andy. I do. It's like people used to ask me on the trumpet side of things, do you ever get stage fright? Do you ever like sort of afraid of standing up in front of a crowd or something and performing? And I say, I never was. And I actually relished the opportunity. And
did you often, and even solo?
Even solo. Like I did a solo performance of a solo trumpet fanfare at Melbourne, at the Melbourne Recital Centre. And there must have been, I think it was like, well, not Recital Centre, the concert hall, Hamer Hall. And
the car park. It's fine. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, the car. No, but it was Hamer Hall. It was a Hamer
room
Hall
with seats in it.
I think I was performing in front of 1,500 people on the trumpet on that one. It's like I just enjoyed the opportunity. It's like I relish the opportunity to be in front of that many people. So if I translate those same skills to presenting a whiskey tasting, that's the fun part. That's the fun part of being like as people have been saying in the chat, like that passion for what you do. I see it when Scott does it. I see it when all of you do it. I see it's like that same sort of thing. It's like jumping in front of a crowd and having fun with it. And I think it does translate from music as well. Yeah.
I definitely feel that as part of the degree, every month we had to perform in front of our entire year group.
Yeah.
And we set up, played a piece to them. And then at the end of the piece, you then turn to all of your peers and they rip into you and give constructive criticism.
Every week. Every week.
It was actually it was a great insight of going, okay, yeah. And I learned very quickly. I kind of scared people sometimes when I finish an event and I just jump on them. I was just like, what did I do wrong? Tell me what happened. What's your feedback? I went, why didn't I do that well enough? And it's not a confidence thing. It's just the thing of actually, you've got to accept that everything that you do can be improved. And, if you think it went well, that's, there's always room to improve that. And it's that, I think going in with that mentality is a lot better, versus going in with a script where you're going, here's my script, here I'm going to talk. And it's, you fail by the arse as soon as.
I don't trust in any scripts, and I'm never really talking about the same cask in any two tastings. So it's like if working single cask kind of context, I'm never going to talk about the same lineup ever again. But but the thing, unlike Alex, I came in with a lot of passion on my first ever tasting, but it was a total nightmare, and it was in front of all the store managers and buyers for Red Bottle Group. That was the first tasting I ever did, and they're a retailer. Then not as good as the Oak Barrel. And they're a retailer.
There's more of them though. There's more of them than
there are more of them. There's like 5 or 6 of them or something, and there was 4 or 5 at the time. Over there. Yeah, there's quite a few around the city, and all their buyers and store managers came in, and I did a tasting for them of that Tasmanian whiskey and some Benramax and stuff, and it was just it was a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. They were there to get sloshed, and I was there to have fun and talk about whiskey, and you know those events. But that was my first one, and I was a little bit disillusioned after that one. I was like, if this is what it is, I'm not into that. But it didn't end up being that way, which is great.
Yeah,
that's really interesting question. Really interesting point. And I just wanted to say very, very quickly, we've got Alexandra Gabriel from Maison Ferrand Plantation coming on to do a live stream for us tomorrow night, 6:30, talk about plantation rum. And even in the dry run we did last night, getting him to go for half an hour was impossible. We could be
Yeah.
here for 6 hours tomorrow
Oh,
night.
yeah.
With him just because once he gets started, and it's just that for him it's rum and cognac, but when he is gone, he is just gone. But Matt, what you were just talking about then, there's been a couple of times, particularly doing, for me, it was corporate tastings early, and you're there and you're sort of a book to run a whiskey tasting. You end up being a bartender, just pouring drinks for rich people and that sort of thing.
It's when you do the sample and they're just sort of like, oh yeah, you can keep filling this up, keep filling this up. It's like, no, you've paid for this amount of whiskey. You haven't paid for the bottles.
Yeah, I want to throw out there, is there any times where you've had for everyone here, had a crowd, whether it's one or two people from across a bar or a room of 150 people, who have sort of taken one look at you and gone, he or she's not going to tell me anything that I don't already know, and then
we've all had that. We've all had that. Yeah,
I get that most weeks, being the baby. You walk into the very fancy whiskey tastings.
Yeah, you get
I feel when I started working in wine, I was the same. I was a 22-year-old kid standing up in front of 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, telling them about wine, and they just took one look at me and just, certainly being in the UK as well, it's just like, I've been drinking wine for 45 years. I know far more than you. It's like, go on then, prove me wrong. It's sort of.
I'd love to hear Alex's on this because she's a girl who drinks whiskey. Ooh.
Are there any girls who drink whiskey?
No.
Fuck you.
I'll leave it.
I'm not winding you up, but you would obviously.
He's just going, I'm not getting into this.
Okay.
No, but like in all honesty, so like when I used to run Dram Club with my best friend in the world, Yvette Myhill, who I'm sure I know of you, probably not Milne and Sam. I think, Sam, you weren't born when we were both in high school, so probably a little bit different. But I noticed a completely different vibe when I was running tastings by myself with Dram Club and then with Yvette. And Yvette is a fantastic public speaker. She's hosted panels, run festivals, all that sort of stuff. And there was a completely different vibe when I would host to when we would co-host or when Yvette would host. And it made the other females in the room feel, far more comfortable. They were far more energetic. And we had, for a long time, we're going back, 6, 7, 8 years now, 50-50 ratios, females to males. There is nothing I can do here at the Oak Barrel. I've tried every trick to get that right because I think at the end of the day, I'm not a female voice. But it was unbelievable how that changed and how not just the response, but also the blokes in the crowd, those dickheads. And I think Daniel Wise has pointed out on the Facebook chat, that one bloke, and it's always a bloke who tries to talk over the ambassador. All of a sudden, when they're shocked that there's a young kid, but also there may be someone they didn't expect. And it's just like, I fucking hated that about whiskey. That's why we started Dram Club, to not go to those sorts of tastings anymore.
Okay. So I think I've watched all of you present. I've watched some of the most amazing ambassadors, distillers. I've been incredibly lucky. There is always that one person that's going to be that asshole, whether you're female or male. And like you were talking about before, Matt, it's about reading the room. If I have a bucks in at Mjolner that have booked me for a whiskey tasting, I'm in there, I'm reading that room and I'm reading which ones are the ones that are just want to drink, and I will project stuff to them, stir them right up, and then they're carrying on. I've got the attention of the people that want to hear and want to talk about it. So it's also just knowledge. I think that's one of the biggest things. I got taught at a very young age, knowledge is power. And when you have that person in the back and look, I've had everyone turn around and do the whole the challenge of, what do you know? I know this. And most of the time I let them go and I'm like, that's great. Holy hell, you know so much. That's wonderful. Because at least they're engaging and they want to learn and they want to know, and they're brave enough to share their knowledge. So male or female, I think there's that one person in the room no matter what. A lot of my colleagues have had problems with that, but they're badass and they just drop knowledge bombs and most sit them the fuck down in their chair. So
I am scared of basically the whole Mjolner kiss kiss bang bang team. Terrified.
Yeah, no, I would never mess with them. Not in a million years. I'd
sign your own death warrant that way.
I'd pretend to drink my whiskey so that I don't get killed.
But there's always going to be someone in the room.
Be scary though. Like, is that knowledge perceived as scary?
No, not knowledge perceived as scary. No.
Just that if I had too many drinks and acted like a dickhead, I would get my ass kicked scary. And there would be no shit, and I would be taken like this and thrown out of the venue scary.
Yeah. Look, I just think like if anyone's wanting to ask questions and they're verbal about it, then they want to know. So you give them that attention, and most of the time they sit down and shut up.
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's a mix. Like there's always that one person that there's always gonna be someone in the room that knows more than you do about something, and so being happy to be vulnerable to that, I think, is always the right thing. To try and argue back. I've seen people try and argue back with people saying, "No, I'm right, you're wrong," and it goes horribly wrong, and everyone's upset and embarrassed. But at the same time, the person that's trying to ask questions to show that they know the knowledge, I think that customer sometimes has to be addressed, not formally addressed, but you almost need to acknowledge it in a way where you sort of go, "Yep, I know that you know everything. Thank you very much. Carry on," because otherwise you do end up in that terrible cycle of just question, dull answer, question, dull answers. It's like, can we bring, this is a room of 40 people, not, one-on-one. And I think that's the only time that I get frustrated is when one customer will railroad you into a corner that, the entire room doesn't care about. It's like, oh, damn it, how do I get you away? Because it's, as much as you want to help, it's then not enjoyable for the rest of the group.
Yeah, and one of the best people I've seen do that is James Bunton. Someone will sit there and ask him a question and he'll literally stop. And he taught me this. He's been to a couple of my tastings. I think I tried to kick him out of the first one when he showed up unannounced. And I was like, "You're not allowed in. Like, I'm not having you in. Get the hell out." And he's like, "No, I'm here to do it." And I'm like, "No, like, I'm not prepared for you to be in there. Like, that scares the shit out of me." And he's like, "No, I'm a friend. I'll be there." And he was great. But one of the things he taught me was when someone asks you a question, you don't just answer them back. You stop the room, you tell everyone the question. And that was also, Dick Blanchard did that. He also taught me that from one of my first tastings. I've had some great educators with that sort of stuff, and they've sat in much to my disgust. But on the other side of that, when I was learning, when I was the little kid at Grain Bar just going, hi, like, pick me, like, talk to me. When I was learning, I used to sit in tasting classes and hear all these amazing people around me asking questions that I was just like, I don't even know to ask that question. And then through that knowledge build-up, I've learned that I've become that asshole in a training that's asking the ambassador who's training me on like peat or something, and then I'm asking the pH levels of moss, and I've learned that I've become that asshole.
What a sentence to come back to.
Right. So again, it's all in the learning, and I think just experience in being, one, a hunter, and two, a presenter. Learning the whole scenario of it. I have learned since I actually asked the pH of moss in a Brookladdy training. I've learned to shut my mouth now, because I was just like, that's brutal. I shouldn't have asked that. But I was generally into the question, and they're educating, and I'm like, right, what is it? And now I won't do that. I'll take that offline. So I think it is just an education of being in both sides of it.
Yeah.
But the way I handle that in tastings I host is that if someone starts really nerding out in a crowd, like, I'm in, again, reading the room and understanding the context of the event you're in. But if someone starts really nerding out on pH levels or still temperatures and barley strains, no. I fully respect those questions. I love those questions. I love the opportunity to answer them, especially for the distilleries that I'm presenting. But I just go, for the sake of everyone in the room, I'll come back to that. Let's have a chat after the tasting. Like I always say, let's have a chat after the tasting. But otherwise, no, I appreciate your first point though, Alex. It's like, if someone asks a great question or even a mediocre question, I always say that whole sort of like, that was a great question. Everyone here had a great question just now from person X. It's a great way to engage the whole audience, and it seems like, because sometimes people are often afraid of asking questions. It's like,
it also can encourage that engagement. Here's the praise. You've just asked a great question. Where's the rest of the other great questions?
Yeah. As soon as one person is commended for it, then everyone's like, oh, I can ask questions. Yeah,
it's building that trust, like the atmosphere in the room, to have people who might not have the confidence to ask a question a question.
Yeah, I actually want to jump to you, Sam. I mean,
yes.
What Alex was talking about with like James Bunton, and probably between James Bunton, Ben Davidson, Laura Hay, and then probably Ross Blaine, there's probably no other people in the country that have run more whiskey tastings in the past decade than they have. But have you, like, coming into this, 3 weeks ago when you turned 18, like what are some of the tricks that you found the most valuable? Because honestly, I don't really remember 8 years ago what I was leaning upon and what tricks I was using. It's a little bit second nature to us all now, probably. But for you, like, what are the things that you've really fallen upon? Because there's probably some people listening who are the whiskey fan amongst their friends, and everyone's sitting at home wanting things to do on Zoom. So, like, any tips for people who are running a very first whiskey tasting for people like that you would recommend?
Keep it simple. My mates don't really drink whiskey, yet I've convinced them to drink some really cool stuff. And it's just telling them the story. I sort of like, you look to the other, like for me, I'm so lucky to still go to tastings, and I just take ideas from other brand ambassadors, like how can they engage people, especially some of like the beginner classes you go to. I love going to them because I think sometimes you need to keep yourself grounded. Like my mates don't need to know what ppm an octomore is. They just want to know how much percentage is it and can they drink it. And I was like, yeah. And sometimes I think I forget about that, but now they start to appreciate it. I think it's just educating and just informing people and saying, you can drink whatever you want, however you like it, but how about you try this? How about you try that? And just, sort of experiment.
It's an important part of that is not going deep end. I think that's a really good, like it's not going deep end. If I'm just to rewind a moment, there's a wine tasting I went to in like when I was 24 or 25 years old. I went to a wine tasting and I didn't know what to expect, and we tasted like 10 wines from the Pic-Poul region of wine, and it's like the presenter was talking about all the intricacies of Pic-Poul, and I didn't really fully appreciate it because it was way too in depth and just way too singular of an event. And I can imagine for young whiskey drinkers, as we were talking about before, Sam, about, bringing new drinkers into the category and new appreciators to good spirit. Like if you start talking about ppm, if you start talking about getting obsessed over sort of really like, I know ppm for us is like, ppm parts per million or whatever. But like for many, they don't, it's way too nerdy to begin with that. And, it gets a bit sort of,
it's the smoky stuff.
Yeah. Oh, what's that smoky flavor I get?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Yeah, exactly. Like,
and even now, people don't even understand. I think if
they don't.
Us in the room right now,
ppm is cooked.
It's the best analogy I had. I was trying to explain it to someone, and I was still working in wine at the time, and we were talking about it, and he was explaining ppm to me, and I said, this sounds about as logical as Austrian wine, Austrian Riesling wine. So in Austria, when they categorize Riesling, in their sort of system, they have 4 different terms that categorize the style and variety of the wine. And all you need to know is your flora, your fauna, and your falconry, and then you'll understand all the 4 words. Because one of the words for it is a type of insect. One of them is a type of flower. One of them is the same name as the little thing, the piece on a string that in falconry that you swing around for the falcon to come back to you. It's just like these terms mean nothing, and they're so illogical, and yet these are used to, people are just like, yeah, obviously that's, such and such. And you're like, fine. Okay.
I just want to comment on something quickly, and I may have gone on a mini rant earlier, which is very, very unlike me to get on a high horse and ride around and yell and scream. But I want to point out something that Ali Barnes said just on the chat there. She gets the "but do you actually like whiskey" question quite often, And the really good point here that she's pointed out, the good thing about being underestimated is you have an opportunity to blow them away once they realize you have some knowledge and passion behind you. I think that being underestimated is a really good point. And this is not the right forum right now to talk about, women in whiskey, because there's 4 dudes and only 1 female. So we promise we'll do that at one point, but there's not
You all. It's easy.
Yeah, we're absolutely. But I think it is, even though like I'm a middle-class white dude, so I've got the easiest life in the world. But even though I will never really understand what it's like to be a woman working whiskey, you do still see things like, and I'm going to drop them in the deep end again, Pure Scotch, which was the blend from Mark Price Distillery, the Lowland Distillery, stuff with a B. Bladnoch, thank you. Yeah. And they came out, and their whole marketing was about pure Scott, blended whiskey, and every image was blokes in suits and girls in bikinis by the pool. And it kept coming. It was like, you got to stop this, Aussie-owned whiskey. I was like, no, we fucking don't, because it's everything against what we agree with whiskey. And I can see Alex doing the flex there. I do want to talk about this, but let's get some other people on a stream for another week, because I don't think it's right to do it without more females on.
More within that, I think we need to talk about the marketing.
Yeah, and that's something that
the brand. Most of the time, the brands pay the marketer.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that with you. That's.
Yeah, I would too.
Let's dedicate a whole night to this with some like specific voices who have chosen for that comment for that topic. I'm sorry, hold fire. Keep the gunpowder dry. We'll go into this deep. We'll dedicate 3 hours to it.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you said your first whiskey that you had was Johnny Walker Black.
I believe so. Oh, no. Well, that I remember, yes.
All right. First one they remember?
Jamison, I think.
Jamo.
Was it
Canadian
club for you?
I still love it. I can go drink the fanciest single malt whiskey, but I still love CC.
Yeah.
I think that's balance.
Jack or Wild Turkey or
Oh, I can't drink Jack. Too many bad memories.
I drank a lot of Jack as a kid.
Yeah. Well, legal.
Yeah, as an 18-year-old kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like whiskey. I stopped maturing at about 15 years old. I'm still getting older, but I came out of the barrel at 15. So technically, I'm still a kid.
Just really dry and sappy now.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that part, but yeah, the metaphor goes deep.
I was the only whiskey I remember being in the house. We always had Famous Grouse in the house, as that was the benchmark. And on special occasions, Balvenie was often there. But that bottle just kind of changed. He had a single malt in the house, but it varied. But I was the same. When I could start buying booze, I was buying Jack, and that was what I had. Teachers on that chat, yeah, there was Teachers, Bells, Famous Grouse. That was everything that we had.
Yeah.
At the house. But the first bottle of single malt I bought, which now comes across as real fancy, but it was kind of pretty standard fare at the time, was Macallan. I think it was Double Oak. It was the grey box 10-year-old. 10.
Pine Oak, Double Oak.
Fine Oak. That was it.
Because the 12-year-old was the light blue one.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it was 10-year-old Fine Oak was when I was actually buying, my first bottle and being like, yeah, let's buy proper single malt and be fancy. And it was really, it was in that idea of a 19-year-old being like, I'm real fancy. We're going to go and play poker and drink scotch and smoke cigars. And it was sort of my first sort of playing Mad Men before I actually was old enough to afford any of this. But it's just like playing a persona of what a Scotch whiskey should be. That's what I was drinking.
Like Black Douglas in the chat as well.
Yeah, Black Douglas, Teachers, Famous Grouse, Bat 69.
I've still got my first bottle I bought.
Yeah? What is it, Sam?
I've never opened it. Just
okay,
classic.
that's right.
You never opened the first bottle of whiskey you ever bought?
No, I was too sentimental.
Sam, hold on to it.
So I bought another one.
Hold on, we're row back. How did we get to the point of loving whiskey? Like, if you didn't know Or were you just like drinking it? Were you drinking other people's bottles and you said,
Yeah.
I'm going to get this myself?
Pretty much, yeah. So I think half the bottles I've got, I still haven't opened. I get too attached to them, like they associate with some memory or something, and I can't do it. Is Alex the same? Yeah, it's just too hard to open them.
I did that. I think I just realized the first bottle I unlegally purchased was from a distillery in Scotland, and it was a fill your own. And I was 17. I was with my dad, so I don't think they just cared to even.
This is in Scotland, so it's okay, everyone. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know, 15, you can start your buckies. But it was a fill your own Ablauer. And I now regret opening that one. I think as soon as I was old enough to drink it, it was cracked and drunk. But that was phenomenal, but sadly gone.
Alex, sorry, did you say what?
No, I didn't. Like we all asked about before how we got into whiskey or how we started drinking whiskey. I was bartending in the early 2000s and it was all vodka and gin and I just couldn't drink any of it. But I went up top end of Queensland and was working on a property up there. I was jillarooing for a while. I had a choice of Jim Beam, Bundy or Forex. Which is where my
I thought they go together. Let's see, one.
That's a cocktail. That's a cocktail.
That's a mixed drink.
My love of whiskey kind of kicked in there. I remember someone giving me a Hennessy and Coke once, and that was my thing for a while. And then someone handing me a Scotch and Coke, and that was my introduction into like whiskey without an E, so non-American. And it just flipped from there. Like I could not drink vodka or gin or any white spirits, and while I can appreciate them now, do love a good martini now. Maybe Sammy Martini is one of my favorites. It's just always been whiskey. So Jim Beam on the property, Jeweller's White Label was probably my first bottle of Scotch.
I do like reminiscing on the cocktails or mixed drinks that we used to have when we were younger. Someone the other day was talking about it. I realized that for a while I went through a phase of Advocaat and lemonade.
Oh yeah.
I feel very horrible about myself.
Okay,
Tea Maria and lemonade.
Do you worst drink that you're sort of guiltily proud of, but wouldn't admit to too many other people? For me,
that's easy.
Vodka raspberries.
Yes.
They were like, 4 for $10 at Spectrum, and what was the club above Spectrum on Oxford Street? Where Hot Damn used to be.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. Sorry, so if it's not that.
Yeah, no, I forget the name. It's all long gone now. But it was the grenade, and I don't think it was even vodka raspberry. It was just like 20% vodka with a hint of grenadine. But didn't we knock them back at 19 years old?
I still do.
I had an obsession with grenadine as a child. I'd had something with grenadine in it, and a sort of hotel resort as a mocktail. And for ages in my childhood, it was always just like, let's make a fancy mocktail with grenadine. Years of grenadine cocktails.
There's a lot of comments coming in here that's just like, Redback, Blue Lagoon. You just take a colour and an arbitrary object and put them together and pretend it was a cocktail.
Cheeky Vimto was a big one in the UK. It's Blue WKD and Port.
Oh.
I used to make them when I was bartending here.
Yeah. We sold them by the jar.
Here's a resume for you.
It was crazy.
I have been a Southern Comfort girl.
Don't go.
I have been a Jim Beam girl. I was a Cougar Bourbon girl.
They're separate things, are they?
Launched Jaeger when it first came into Australia. I have been in WKD, which is the Wicked, the blue drinks. I've been in
fancy drinks.
Like a Wicked, let's just say it was meant to be a top. What else have I done? I did a bit of Bundy rum. Like this is all in promotional work and being a bartender and bikini comps and shit like that. But yeah, that's when it flowed on later on in my 20s, doing all the promotional work for all the whiskey brands there as well. So fun stuff.
I still drink half these.
Yeah, look, my shameful spirit of choice these days is I still love Wild Turkey 101. I think it's a banging whiskey.
No, I didn't. No, I'm not. Okay. Yeah.
But hold on, like why? But no, why is that shameful? That's just entry level whiskey.
It's an entry level whiskey.
We're talking about sugar and vodka here.
Well, then I'm out on that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry, your idea of slumming it is, bloody 25-year-old Glen Murray's. But
no. Hold on a second. Hold on.
It's a glass of Benedictine.
It's like the swan's blood's on hold for a night.
Slumming it. It's like I still appreciate Jack. I like Jack. I like WT 101. I like. There's a lot of entry level bourbons that I can still appreciate. And yeah. Well, hold on. Sam and I were talking. Shut up, Scotty. Sam and I were talking about. I know what you're going to say, so you can bite me. Sam and I were talking about this before about how you've got to appreciate the gamut of the spectrum. You can appreciate a rare single cask cognac or something, and you can also appreciate a Jim Beam White. It's like, or whatever it is. It's like there's appreciating that wide spectrum keeps your palate in check and keeps your appreciation. You don't know what's good until you've had. It's like,
isn't that funny? I always come back to what you're comparing as like the comparatives, like the regular stuff. That's where I sit.
No, I get that.
Jamison, because, and I don't know whether it's because I've been spoilt or the fact that that's just where I sit.
No, I get it. It's fine.
I think that's the everyday drinking there. I think
every day is sure.
We have to forget that we are very privileged and lucky to be given things that we can sit and enjoy. And I'm drinking the dregs of Pappy Van Winkle at the moment because someone gave me a bottle with a dram left at the bottom, and I can't even buy a bottle, let alone afford one. But it's not exactly that thing that everyone's sat at home drinking. But at the same time, when I first moved in, I was unemployed. I was drinking gin, and it was just like, all right, what's a good entry level bourbon that if I want to drink, and I'll just chuck a big chunk of ice and a slice of orange, and and I think that's where you actually you become your own bartender without really thinking heavily about it. Actually, what Matt would regard as a simple bourbon, but you just have a good entry level bourbon or grain whiskey or whatever it might be, but you chuck that in with a big ball of ice and a slice of lemon or a slice of orange. It's the garnish is as much the thing that lifts it. Have a Sazerac cocktail without a slice of lime in it, it's pointless. You've wasted the entire drink without using that bit of lemon. And as soon as you add that in, it's like, bang, there's the drink. And so I actually think there's more entry level spirits. We sit there and geek out drinking our scotches neat. And that's what they're designed for quite often. But, Jim Beam isn't designed to be drunk, out of a fancy Glencairn crystal cut glass. It's designed to be with a wedge of ice and a finger stirring it. So drink it that way.
A finger stirring it.
Other ways. There's other ways to drink it other than out
Our
of the
spoon's
bottle.
too wanky. straw in. Sometimes the straw doesn't get all the way to the bottom, so you have to.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, just go on.
There you go. I think it's situational. I think that's like if you're drinking on a Sunday, I don't want to be drinking some fancy whiskey. I want to be drinking something you can just session on in a way. But then I still like to geek out. So I think it's that. Yeah, I think we're pretty lucky because we get to try some good whiskey. But I think it's also great to try whiskey in general. Jack's not as my favorite. I still like Jim Beam.
Yeah.
Look, one of the worst things that's ever been done to me. Jay Cosma. Sorry, Scotty. Jay Cosma for my birthday last year at Shady Pines. Puts up a shot, gets a shot, cheerses me the shot, and I'm like, yeah, shot. Fucking neck it back, throw it down, and was like, the fuck was that? And he's like, happy 15, happy birthday. That's one you want to sit with.
I might have just done that because we were getting happy and talking, and I sort of took quite a big gulp of that. And I was like, "Ooh, what was it I just drank?" And yeah, it's a 62% barrel one from Newcastle Distillery. So I put that to one side. We'll have a think about that in a second. But I think what we've all said here in the last 10 minutes is the universal truth. Whiskey is designed to be shared. It's designed to enhance conversations and promote them. And I guarantee we're all in the same position. I have had some really, really average whiskey with some really great people and had some of the best times of my life. And I've had some really, really cracking, rare, delicious whiskey with Matt Bailey, and it's been a really shit-house time. So people around you and the friends you're with make the experience. I think that's really, really, really important.
Alex, this was finished via shots, just so you know. There you go. There's the empty bottle. The 20-year-old. Good bit of fun. That was killed off with some shots. Why not?
Man, the asses I had to kick to get Pappy into my bar the first time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you didn't have enough pallets of buffalo coming through, right? So
no, but I remember an article being published about it that it's the whiskey that millionaires can't even buy. If you can't get better publicity than that, fuck.
Yeah,
that's very good publicity. Yeah,
do love a bit of Pappy.
There was a bar in the States that was fed up with the system.
Allocations thing, yeah.
The allocations. And just, I think it was not just that, they were fed up of it sat on their bar because they charged it so high so it lasted the year. And they were just sod it, let's get the reverse and let's just sell it at cost. And so the first time round, they just did it, and they would only serve it as shots, and they sold it as shots at cost. And everyone, smashed the bottle in an hour, and it was gone. And so the next year they were like, right, how do we beat that? How do we improve on that? And I think they were told, can you not, we'd advise you not to do that because it's not very helpful. And they sort of said, no, who cares? So the following year they put it in slushies. And they slushied the whole lot. And I had a queue all the way down the road of people lining up ready to have their Pappy Van Winkle's 20-year-old slushy. I love that. If you can't beat it, if you're fed up of being I don't want to charge people $100 for a shot. So
I just realized I did just realize that the Southtrade also a thing there. I didn't even pay attention to that. Sorry.
I love someone's just written here. I've been hunting Pappy since I was 18, and they finally got some. They were dream drams for me, to get and to have on my back bar, and it's super fun in the chase, and I remember that. But I mean, now I want to sit and sip on that. Not if you're going to put a shot up, Jack.
It's incredibly hard to work.
Fuck, can do some Buffalo Trace.
But it's incredibly hard to work for the company that sells this in Australia, and I don't have access to this. And it's
yeah.
I look after our whiskies, and I normally, if I want to try something, if I want to understand something, I have the budget to take it and try it and learn about it. And the only occasion that I've ever had, Pappy Van Winkle is at a public event where we purchased a ticket, and it's I've been lucky to be able to get there and do that, but it's a funny one. It's probably the only whiskey that I've ever been around in my life where I'm this close to it, and yet none of us as staff are allowed to purchase bottles, and it's 100% for the consumers, and we're not allowed to get access to it, and rightly so. It's funny to be so close and yet so far from something like
I want to just jump in a couple of quick comments from the Facebook. Gary down in Tassie said he had a good night at Gold Bar with Dan Woolley, Bill and Jack Lark and Peter Bignell. Best whiskey night ever. Gary, you've done very well there. You've gone to Gold Bar and remembered your night out there. So that's a big achievement.
And with that lineup as well.
What's leaving Gold Bar? I don't remember that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's somewhere you walk into and then you wake up in a hotel room somewhere. a few other people. Lee Treweek. I wanted to point out a little bit off topic, but obviously have spoken about some pretty tough times at the moment. But we did speak about our previous lives in the music industry a bit. And I want to say a big shout out to Lee Treweek from Handshake Media Group, who's come up with a concept called Delivered Live for the Victorian regional music industry, running live gigs every Saturday night. So they've now expanded that out to talk to regional producers of beer, wine, spirits, and produce all around Victoria. So good on you, Lee. I've been watching every Saturday night for that. But I think, Matt, you agree with me and everyone here. Probably one of the best examples of sharing great whiskey with people because you love it is the break-even bottle at Haynes & Co., which I think is what Cody Banks was talking about in that comment there.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to swear now. Apologies.
We don't fucking swear at this stream.
Haynes & Co.
Yeah, love Haynes.
Awesome.
Love Haynes & Co.
He's a ledge. He's a great guy.
Cody,
Pretty excited to get back to Sydney once this is done.
Legends.
Or Adelaide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm overdue for Adelaide. This was going to be my year to get back to Adelaide because it's been a full, more than a calendar year now since I've been in Adelaide.
I feel really bad because it's my in-laws live in Adelaide, and so I get I'm over there. Probably
I feel bad for you too, as well, to be honest.
yeah, I feel bad. I'm over there once or twice a year to see them, but I've been over there now 3 times this year for work. And stayed with them because they was like, "Oh, if you're here, come and stay with us. It's fine." And I feel so bad because God knows what they must think of me now. Thank God I married their daughter, a few years ago now. But I rock up, have wonderful times in Haynes & Co. and in Crybaby, and come home very late at night. Sneak into a room, fall asleep, and actually the last time I was there, I didn't even see them to say goodbye. So I was there. I saw them for a drink the Friday evening that I arrived, and then Monday I left, and I hadn't seen them since Saturday morning. I was like, "Hi, I'm your son-in-law. Cheers. Sorry about me." So I love Adelaide, but it also scares me because it turns me into a very active drinker.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge emerging, not emerging, so that's the wrong word, but I would say I know Sam, you're on this stream, but I'm going to throw it out there in terms of ratio of distilleries per state. I would say South Australia is hard to beat as being sort of in the top 25 of Australian whiskey in terms of distilleries in the state. I reckon the ratio for South Australia would be right up there.
Punching well above its weight there.
I think so too, yeah. They've got some cracking stuff coming out of there, and it's always consistent. Yeah,
New South Wales, obviously I love New South Wales. I'm a little bit biased. I'm probably going to remove myself from that vote. Victoria's got a lot of good stuff. I think, obviously I love Tassie, but there's so many there that not always the quality control is up to where it's going to get to. Victoria, there's probably a few new ones popping up. Western Australia, I probably haven't tried enough of the newer ones in the past 12 months to vote on outside of your lime burners, whippersnappers, bellwethers, the stuff that we love. But I reckon very rarely I will try a South Australian distilled whiskey that isn't of proper quality.
Yeah, I think the vast majority are at that real top end of Australian whiskey. And I think, they're just crackers. I'm always surprised. It's this is good again.
My whiskey is my jam. Riverbourne is New South Wales. I'm pretty sure it's just outside the ACT border. And Lee White has said he's going to unsubscribe from this feed and never buy anything from the Oak Barrel again because I bagged Tassie. That's right. So Lee, I've only got 10 fingers. I don't really understand what it's like to be Tasmanian.
Stop.
I made the same joke when Peter was on last week.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
I'm an adopted Tasmanian. Being the proud Melburnian I am.
Having said, I want to do a quick shout out to Lucas and the team at Newcastle Distilling. I've got a little bit left of this sample. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with it, but I apologise it's taken so long for me to get to it. But I think the spirit's very good. There's a bit of fresh oak in it. But I know you guys are doing a lot for Newcastle hand sanitizer and actually partnered with some pharmacies up there to help them up. So I haven't seen that, so you're probably not listening, but and good on you guys for helping out there doing what you can at the moment. We should go around the grounds, and this includes everyone playing at home. What have we moved on to drinking? Because it's been a while since we did that. I'll kick us off then. I'm going to, in the a cask strength Hyde President's cask, sherry cask finish from Hyde. So Cooley stock almost certainly from Ireland.
I'm on a finishing off the bits round tonight and kind of cleaning up bottles where there's a dram or two, but misjudging the bottle and actually there's about 5 or 6. So tough work pushing through. But I've been knocking off the last dram of Pappy and now on to Starwood Doublewood. All I know is it says Doublewood 1 of 1, 56.6. But it would be a fill your own cask, because quite often when I caught up with the gang or with the ambassadors, it was always a case of, oh, I've got the rest of this from a tasting and I fly back to Melbourne tonight. Do you want this? Or, there's a dram left in that, here you go. So I did quite well out of those guys for a short while of just getting their spent drams.
Well, there's some amazing drams being drank on the feed right now.
Do you want to read them out?
We have Tim Boone Distillery Port Finish. Blackwoods Distilling has just opened their first SMWS bottle.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
Lee and Bree, good to see you guys.
Dark Valley, Killara Bourbon Cask from Gary.
As Glen Scotia 15 from Phil, just above them.
What's Dark Valley? I've not heard of them.
Alex Moores in Tassie.
So in Indie Bottler, is Dark Valley still exclusively Tassie spirits?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. We might need to...
Sorry, backwards. Apologies.
No, okay. No, this is ridiculous. Lee and Bree Atwood from Backwards. I'm sorry. You can't expect us to get it wrong. It's fucked up. It's too hard.
I've drank a few whiskies tonight. Apologies. I'm sorry. I will never get that wrong again.
There is a Blackwood as well, I'm pretty sure, which makes it even harder.
I said Tim Boone right, didn't I? Tim Boone.
Tim Boone.
Tim Boone.
Right.
Yeah, Tim Boone. He batted number 5 for Australia back in the 60s, didn't he?
Yeah, proud Tasmanian.
Yeah.
Don't do it, Scotty.
Well, I'm not going to do
There's a song
that.
written about him as well, isn't there?
I am definitely going to take a skull of the Backwoods Distilling.
Cheers.
So sorry, but you didn't actually ask. So we've gone through the crowd. What are you on, Alex?
I'm on Elsa Bay.
Nice.
Yeah. See, thanks for that. I've just now done my free samples a lot ever for Backwoods Distilling Co.
I think next week we should all bring our most prized possession whiskey to the table. Not necessarily drink it, because I would never drink it. But our most prized possession.
Oh, I like that idea.
Mine's in storage though, so can I get a photo of it?
No.
The one you have.
Actually, no. I know. I do have something. I do have something.
I have something that's empty that is my most prized possession.
Do that.
Do that.
Sam, did I get a glimpse of a fruit juice bag?
Yes.
Which might come from whiskey or ailment.
Yes, ailment. Yes, depends on how drunk you are. The pronunciation changes. So yeah, 13-year-old Hazelburn from the 2018 edition. And yeah, it tastes like jam.
Okay. So I saw them do the little bags, and all I thought about was that actually might make my public drinking a lot easier.
It's great because all you do is just pour or.
Can you? Yes.
Just put an orange juice label on the front, and
that's the great question, isn't it? How much of this innovation is going to evolve over to the point where we can public drink again? So, where is this going to?
Oh no.
Because these are great.
How big a goon sack are we going to start getting for whiskey?
As big as we possibly can until we can hang it off a clothesline and then spin it round.
We do that for Fireball.
I have a Fireball budgie smugglers somewhere here at the Oak Barrel.
Oh, snap.
Oh, look at that face.
Maybe instead of not wearing pants one stream, I only wear those.
I upset, and the strange thing is it didn't even surprise my former colleagues. But when I last went back to the UK, I went into the Whisky Exchange shop and I gifted them a calendar. And they kind of just thought, oh, you're weird. Maybe you work for Fireball now. Fine, here's a Fireball calendar. And it wasn't until the month that I was actually featured in the calendar in nothing but budgies, having just arrived in the country as well. So it was pale as anything, just gone through a winter, no tan, white as snow. And this absolutely white kid with tiny budgie smugglers lying on top of a fire truck in a car wash in Marrickville as someone was subbing me, is where we shot this. And my colleagues suddenly clocked that I was on this calendar. All of a sudden, I got copied in by about the fifth email going around the business, where it sort of gone from one person to one person to one person to one person, and finally they copied me in and went, just to let you know, this picture has gone around the entire business now, and we're all laughing at you on a fire truck. I was like, cheers, guys. That was me being confident in my first week, going, yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, sure. And I didn't know what was happening. Someone just said, oh, can you come and help us out? I was like, yeah, sure. Turned up, and the entire team from Howling Wolf were there in nothing but budgie smugglers, in a sort of parking lot on the way to the airport. And it was just in the middle of the nowhere, this industrial site. And yeah, the first thing that Luke from Howling Wolf said to me was, oh, good day, mate. He said, you do the car wash scene with us as well? So, yep, sure. Yep, I'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you for that calendar, by the way. That was fantastic.
Pleasure. I apologize profusely.
No, please don't. Send me a coffee.
Just like the Instagram story, after the I might wear budgie smugglers and nothing else comments, I'm getting some private messages that can't be read out on. Why don't
you wear the underwear I sent you?
yeah, exactly. Like not in a good way. I can't read them out. But yeah,
too many sponsorship deals with too many budgie smuggling companies. Yeah.
We've never sold a bottle of Fireball through the Oak Barrel in 64 years of trading. So I don't know how I ended up with those budgie smugglers.
Now it's the time. Let's push it.
Yeah. Before we descend into absolute madness, I want to do a quick shout out to Tim Byrne, because I did speak to Josh Walker down there quickly today, who is obviously quite dependent on foot traffic, had a pretty tough time with the bushfires and then COVID, but really importantly was someone who was showing support to particularly New South Wales farms during the droughts this time last year by organising trucks and sending hay out there. And I think, what's really important for them is they are a distillery and they've got a beautiful cellar door. But they work with a lot of the local businesses that make things like world-class ice cream and cheese and milk, which ice cream is not the easiest thing to e-commerce. So even though people want to help, it's quite hard to support businesses like that. So hopefully, and if Lee Trueek's still listening, with Delivered Live and focusing on the wider Geelong region this week, we can get some love, some music, and hopefully throw a bit of love to not only the Tim Byrne guys, but the people sitting around them, because they're doing it very, very tough as idiots like me sit in the city where nothing bad ever happens. Mm-hmm. No bushfires get to me, no hurricanes, typhoons. We have it very, very easy out here.
And you can order all their whiskey on the Nip of Courage website, correct?
Nip of Courage, absolutely. And so organising something today, and this is, I think, sums up Kathleen for me. I got asked to, who should we speak to? And I was like, well, Josh Walker, not just for this, but everything he's done the past sort of 18 months. Got on to Kathleen and said, hey, what should we, can we make this happen? She said, absolutely. And I was like, okay, well, there might be opportunity to flog some bottles as well. And she was like, don't flog them through me. Go straight to Josh, let him take the full margin, which is so admirable, but also kind of insane, considering that the Nipper Courage business is so focused on not one big chain store, but about 1 trillion different independent bars and restaurants and that sort of stuff that all have their quirks. And that takes a lot of time to manage all that, which has just been ripped from underneath. But to say, actually go direct to them, let them have everything, the whole margin. I think that tells very much the character of not only Kathleen and Jared, but the whole Nipper Courage team. And as we've sort of said in the past couple of streams, let's make this mayhem bring out the best of us, not the worst in us. And I think that's quite a very, very good and strong example of, absolutely the best of us, and better than me, better than people like us. So I don't know if she's still listening or whatever, but I was going to say g'day to Josh Walker for that one, but Kathleen, I think you deserve as much credit as anyone at the moment.
Well, and truly, we should bring her on one week.
Yeah. Well, ever since I got on my high horse, I've been thinking about a plan I'm going to propose to you, Alex.
Oh no.
Yeah. Which involves all the males in the room right now kicking themselves out. I can still, provide the infrastructure and internet, but I think, Alex, you might need to host one of these with a few of your friends who might work in the industry who are not male, and to talk about that from your point of view without dickheads like me getting on high horses. But I'll talk to you after we've done this.
Can't we all just play nice together?
Yeah.
We can, but I think if we want to talk about, again, tell me if you disagree with this, but I think to talk about what we were almost teetering on talking about, an hour ago or something, we definitely, even if it's more people, we need more female voices from different parts of the industry. We need the retail industry. We need the brand ambassador. We need the bartender, the bar manager, the distributor, the distiller. And for me, having 8 or 9 people in a chat like this kind of would get a bit clumsy. So I'm more than happy to step back and do that. But we can talk about that afterwards.
Definitely.
I think you definitely get on both the alleys, like Ali from Carew and Ali from Sullivan's. I think that'd be great people for that.
Have they ever been seen in the same room though?
No, but I think we need to. Because they're both legends. So I think we definitely need to, yeah.
I'll look that up.
Yeah. Let's make that happen. I have read some. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I look forward to the day where we all sit in a room together and have this conversation, because years ago when I was working in wine, I used to run a Women in Wine event. I know it seems weird that I, as a male, was running the Women in Wine, but there wasn't anyone that worked with us at the time that was able and confident and wanted to do it. But it was exclusively wine tasting for women, and so removed the pressure of being in that environment where they're undermined by people, and remove the misogyny and sexism. And it was great, and it was fantastic. My mum and my sister actually came along to it all the time, and her friends and my friends came along, and it was amazing to see them. And friends of mine here and in the UK have run Women in Whisky as well, and the similar kind of approach. And I think the only thing that infuriates me about it is that we have to do that. And it's, I understand why, and there's a complete logic, and there's a logic as to why it's done. But it frustrates me that we have to be in that position, that we have to do this, and hopefully my gender will be better, but unfortunately I can't speak for us all. But
we did a very similar thing about 4 years ago as one of the Whisky Fair tastings, where I set up the room and ran water, but we had 6 different females from part of the industry, and again it was a whisky tasting only for women. So we had a distiller, we had a bartender, we had Beth, who was working at the Oak Barrel to provide the retailer presented thing, and I'm not sure that it worked. And I can see Alex laughing at me now because what's happening right now is a couple of blokes are trying to fix this problem, which is why I kind of say I think like I don't know, so that's why because it still is a problem, and even though we hope we don't do it, we still quite obviously see it. I see it in marketing, I see it in bars, I see it all the fucking time. So that's why I'm kind of keen to not address this topic too heavily now, because I need to be told what is the correct way to do this, because I don't honestly fucking know, right? I can try with the best of intentions, but it's not really my place to say this is how we fix this. So that's why I think we put it out there and let Alex. She knows a bunch of fucking people who we all know, but if Alex is keen to, sort of drive it and be the moderator, I think we dedicate that night, and then we can bring it all back together afterwards. But that's my standing is I would feel uncomfortable, as I sort of feel uncomfortable right now, talking a little bit about it, going this. But I think this is if we can provide this platform to at least so I can learn as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, to whiskey. Fuck.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
I think we're just past those times. I think
but like I still see it. I get because I'm a bloke who is like interested in whiskey. I get targeted ads on all social media to me that is blokes in suits, girls in bikinis by pools, thinking that that's going to be a good thing. That's a good image for someone who is flagged an interest in whiskey.
Yeah, but then we've also got with far out. Here we go.
Wait, we could say this.
No, okay. This is just finishing this off. We have Instagram accounts that are still marketing fucking whiskey with girls in lingerie.
Yeah.
To me, and well respected too, and fuck, the respect was there for me, and it still is.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, is are we there yet? We're through this. I believe that I want to push as many women as I possibly can, and I have them in my venues. And Mjolner was at one point nearly 80% female run. And that just came from the right person at the right time. And that's how it happened. I've had people tell me that happened because I was there and that women would prefer to work for women. And then I've also had, majority of my life, I've had male teams. I think we're just at a point now that we can just move forward and highlight people as distillers, ambassadors, general managers, bartenders, rather than male or female. And if someone asked me to speak on being a woman in the industry, I would rather talk about whiskey or being a general manager, purely because that instantly creates that segregation rather on skill sets. I came up through a very brutal time in hospitality. Kathleen and I have spoken about this before. I came up early 2000s in pubs. And that's where I got most of my difference as a female. But now it's only just recently in winning some awards that I've actually come up against the whole being a female thing. So it actually hasn't been a huge thing in my career up until recently.
I'd add that it's marketing of the past.
Absolutely.
We still as an industry, we talk about NAS being a bad thing. It's just like, oh, no age statement. Oh God, they're lying to us. They're cheating us. This is terrible. It's because I point the finger at myself here. I'm a marketeer. But through the history in the 90s, we sat there and we said to you all, buy this. This is older is better. Older is much better. Older is much better. Men drink whiskey. And we've delivered this message consistently for the last 20, 30 years. And society has changed, but perceptions don't. And perceptions are based on 10 years. They're not based on what's happening now. And so I feel like we're in the point where society generally has changed. There's a lot to improve on, but we've hit a point where I think a lot more people understand, that we are all equal. But unfortunately, we're stuck on the side of marketing that has told people for years. You tell people for decades that this is the right this is the truth. And now,
Yeah.
1 year of a campaign doesn't change everything. So
I'd rather bring on a badass distiller onto this than pin it as bringing a female distiller.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd rather bring a badass distribution company owner than a female in distribution.
I guess like something I'll say just finally on this, and I don't mean it to be the final thing.
I don't mean to be combative at all, but this is just
sorry, Scott.
Let's move on from being females. Let's just be people in whiskey.
Yeah, and like I just want to and people can rebut me obviously, but I think potentially where this is coming from is potentially my own insecurities about shit. Like as you're saying, Milne, in the 70s, 80s, it was marketed as that sort of drink. Am I doing enough to make everyone feel welcome? And yes, they're like fucking badass. Pretty much everyone we've spoken about tonight is fucking unbelievable, and all like people who I consider very good friends are really strong, powerful people. What about the people who are a little bit more insecure, maybe a little bit younger, maybe Sam's age at 15 years old, that and they look at it and they don't always see people like yourself, Alex, and they see other things. Am I doing enough ever to promote that? So that's why I think I'd like to listen to that side, and then.
I think you're right to feel that, but I think the rabbit hole that you can fall down is then, and it's what we've all seen is people then sort of go, we haven't been inclusive for many years. We now need to be inclusive, and they've gone way too far on the other end and just gone, let's do a pink bottle, let's do it, and it's just like whoa, like you've completely like, and it's that hard. It's you almost your mindset is and the public's mindset has changed, and in time we will all change. But as soon as we start sitting there going, all right, we need to market women by doing this, and we're not going to market men doing this, and it's as someone that looks at these campaigns and looks at these approaches, on a daily basis, as soon as anyone starts targeting a gender, I question why we're targeting a gender and how we're going to target a gender. And so why are we doing that? And what's the point? Let's do it as a whole. So I, don't have those fears, because I think what you do at the Oak Barrel is amazing. And if you started being targeted, then I'd be more pissed off with you. I would be pissed off with you, not that I am. But more, I'd hate you more than I already do.
I think
a great fucking job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
but let's move on. We're going around in circles. Well, let's move on from this. But I think that's where this comes from. Is like we all want to make sure this is a safe and encouraging industry. So we need to.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so, what I feel uncomfortable about tonight is talking and not listening, because there's not enough voices right now that I would want to listen to. So I am back onto the straight rye from Colonel H. Taylor.
I revisited as well.
Yeah, I'm back to the start.
You
love to see it.
I bounced off to Starwood, but I did bourbon, back to straight rye.
Do you know what I'd like to see? Speaking of sculling bottles, is that a flamethrower just on Matt's right shoulder, our left, but his right shoulder. Can you just scull that flamethrower?
You'd like me to scull pure butane? Is that what you're saying?
I thought that was Sky Vodka.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's Sky Vodka limited edition.
Yeah, it's a Sky Vodka butane edition. There you go. No, I talked about that last night. Someone asked me, why is there a butane canister on my shelf? And I use it to light barrel staves at events. It's a bit of fun. The smell of a burning barrel stave, a charred barrel stave, is a bit of fun in some events. So,
why you just blow up buildings at the same time?
I have to turn. I do have to turn. I actually ask certain venues to isolate their smoke alarms and turn them off and shit, so that we don't have that problem. But yes. It's fun.
I know somebody used to do that with.
The smell of like a charred stave. Or a barrel.
He used to do that with overproof rum. He'd do that with. He'd throw What do you like a cannon with? What's that called?
A wick.
A wick? Yeah, no, but what's the powder? Gunpowder.
Gunpowder.
Yeah.
Come on, mate.
He used
Cordite.
yeah, he used to
Cordite.
get gunpowder. I know. He used to get gunpowder, pour rum on it, and prove that it was 100 proof. You know, the old European 100 proof, and just walk into bars, line their bar with gunpowder, pour rum on it, and just spark a match and throw it down. Caused all sorts of carnage at every tasting, and once melted a table. Didn't go down well.
That's unreal.
All right. Well, so next week we're all going to bring our bottle. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. So something very sentimental, I think, is the theme.
Yeah. You realise I'm just going to bring my entire whiskey collection.
It's just going to be a case just open.
So
I can show you a
next week
spreadsheet for that.
Like a bar.
The Alex Dahlenburg hour.
Yeah. It's all fucking sentimental to me. That's the problem. But I do have 1 or 2 bottles that are like hit me in the heart.
Nice.
I've got one actually now that when I said Milne that a lot of mine's in storage. I've got one actually that's at home that means a really lot to me. Something quite in the last 2 years. That I'd be more than I'm not. I'd like to open it with other people, so I probably won't open it, but I'll bring it and I'll make a promise that when we can all hang out in the same place, we'll open it together.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about a wrap up of favorite first place we're going to go when we're out?
Oh, I mean,
like
everywhere.
Wrap up because it's 10 o'clock.
I'm going to be a terrible person, and I will start on Clarence Street, which is an odd place for me to even start because I normally end up there. But I would start on Clarence Street and make my way as far towards Bondi as I can. So to those who aren't from Sydney, the Clarence Street Gauntlet involves getting off at the sort of
There's Lobo.
Yeah, so you start at Grandma's, then you go to Cantina, then you go to Lobo, then you make a call, a very important decision in your life. Do you go to Barbershop, Duke of Clarence, Baxter's, or Old Mates? And then you do, whichever way you do it the other way around. But I think it's better to go to Old Mates first, then do the 3, because you can get stuck in the 3 and then Old Mates you're screwed. Then you go up to PS40, Swinging Cat, Burrow.
I see. Normally I'd go up to PS40 and then I'd hop for it in a cab up to Wild Rover.
You're talking about the Golden Mile?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about.
I call it the Clarence Gauntlet.
Clarence Gauntlet. Yeah.
Isn't it called the Clarence Street Precinct now?
I call it the stairbed walk, because if I do it, I'm definitely in the stairbed.
I'm going to jump in there because there's 2 options when I can walk out the Oak Barrel and go anywhere else than home. I turn right and I do the Clarence Gauntlet, end up in Burrow until the lovely Bryce and Chow tell me to go home. But I'll probably first time.
You go 1 or 2 ways. You either go towards Burrow or you go up towards your end. And
so probably the first time when I'm out, I will turn left and I will do. I'll do all of them. I'll do Paramount. I'll do Tio's. I'll do Soul Trap, and they'll end at Rover and just hug anyone that wants a hug.
Just hold me. All of you hold me, please.
It's been about 5 weeks since I've touched another human being, so a hug would be nice.
I think Alex and I had it even longer because we both had to go into the lockdown after the Amber Light.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I had 1 day of freedom.
3.
Lucky. I'm glad I bought myself a PlayStation in that 1 day. Yeah.
So, and on that note, Sam, what's your first visit?
So Malt. I think I'd get off the train at Flinders, walk to Gym Palace, which that's a dangerous start.
90.
Yeah.
Is it 60 mil? 90 mil martinis.
Yes.
Is that what they do?
Yeah. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah, it's just sort of regretting that
I was
first
like,
choice straight away. It's like, shit, yeah, I'm starting with that,
I
aren't
was
I?
like, I think no, I know. Then probably head up, have a pint at Heartbreaker,
Nice.
whiskey and element.
Has anyone ever had just one pint at Heartbreaker though?
Never.
No,
I've gotten in a lot of trouble for my expenses at Heartbreaker, but
Hey, me too. Me
pizza
too.
and
on
a pint.
expenses. Yeah, I actually got denied entry into Heartbreaker last time I was there. That was interesting.
really,
I was with Sasha Norse, and I
Well, that
At Beneath
explains it
Driver
all.
Lane these days. He's doing his own stream, so get on the Beneath
Yeah.
Driver Lane, say good day to Sasha.
I tripped on the anyway. I tripped on the pavement on the way walking over the road to get to Heartbreaker, and because I tripped and I went ugh, and like tripped on like a bit of concrete or something because I didn't lift my foot enough or something. The lovely bouncer said, no, that guy in the jacket, he's not coming in.
Not tonight.
I mean, I rarely get in because it's the bar next to the hotel that I stay in, and so it's always my last.
Oh, you
stop.
say it, man.
And I should never be staying there. I should never be going into that bar in the first place. I've held it to the last moment. I leave it to the last moment and go, yeah, I can get in here at 2 a.m. It's fine. You know, I haven't been to 6 bars and yeah.
Okay, so y'all haven't
Downhill.
had the hats and tats night finished then, have you?
no.
I've always managed to escape because I go to Hats and Tats up to Starwood. So I've always managed to escape at about midnight to Heartbreaker, to Black Pearl, to Magic Wake Up in Hotel Room.
It's the only place I've actually been shirted in twice now, I think. Like if you want a t-shirt, like you have to give us your t-shirt. Fuck. It is seriously like that's my like whole. If I go to Melbourne, I need to make sure I do everything else first. Then I can go to Hats and Tats and just retire for the evening.
See, I've never done the finish there. So I've
You're
always started.
brave.
So
Sam,
You're brave to finish.
Yeah, Sam. Quick question: have you been to the Wild Rover in Sydney?
No, I've actually
Okay.
only been to Sydney once, and that was for the Whisky Awards where I met half of you guys.
Yeah, no, because the first time I was, and we're talking a little while ago, I was asked to go, hey, we're going to go to Hats and Tats. Oh, I was like, I've never been if I heard about it. It was like, it's like Rover, but in Melbourne. So I'm wondering whether it has the, if you've been to.
Hats and Tats is not like Rover in Melbourne.
Yeah,
It's like Rover
way more
3 years ago.
aggressive.
It's
3
way
years
more
ago.
aggressive. Oh my god.
It's like I'd say it's more like Frankie's on
No,
a really small scale.
Way more like
No,
Frankie's.
in decor, but no, not in the same, like you walk in, and we're abiding by all RSA rules at this point in time, but here is a bottle of Jamison that you are going to, do laybacks of, and for about 90 mils until you're allowed to sit at the bar, which is the glory years of Rover.
you guys are a bunch of.
That's never happened at Rover. Honestly, definitely
The
never
only
happened.
question I asked is, what are you going to do when you get out of this? And you were straight away into bars and boozing up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice
So good
All
point.
Certain
I wanna
Viking
do
themed
is
restaurant.
go hug my mum, hug my grandma, and hug my stepfather, and go to the farm and see my dad. That's it.
Mine are on the other side of the world, so
We have
I'm not going to do that.
we
for
have
another year.
all misread this question horrifically.
I know,
No.
that was perfect. That's why I did it.
No. My priorities are a Palmer and a pint at a pub.
Pub meal.
I do
Palmer meal and a pint, please. That's all I need at the moment. That's all I'm craving.
There's a really old school British pub near me, and I want to go there and have
Yeah.
a pint and a pie.
Yeah,
And that's
the
what
pub,
I like.
there's a pub literally around the corner
Family
from my house.
wise, I won't see them for another year anyway. So I don't have the privilege of being like, oh, I'll pop up and see my mum. They are back in the UK, so at some point next year, I'll probably see them. But
And
Yeah, I'm still with mum and
I
dad's.
don't
They're
have
probably
the
gonna kick
immediate
me out.
family.
we have officially been gamed here because Vicky Dahlenburg, who I am convinced might be related to Alex Dahlenburg,
Oh, I don't know her.
was the first comment tonight, and it's just popped back up to say, love you, XXOOX. And I don't think it's for me. I don't think it's for you, Milne. I don't think it's for Matt. And Sam, somehow I don't think it's for you.
I love that Backwoods Distilling says, I would love to do anything without my family.
Yes, but they're homeschooling because there's like teaching professions in there. So like they're not just genius distillers, but they teachers, trying to turn lounge rooms into schoolroom, so I got a lot of time for them. But yes, I can understand how getting away from it could be quite important quite quickly.
Please know that I'm driving, I'm hugging everyone, and then I'll be on the bars with you guys. So
yeah.
To be fair, drive around.
Yeah, I've got no one to hug. I'm just gonna just get a bar. So look, I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned into tonight. We have gone again about 2.5 hours over what we said we were going to do. But like, I want to, just talk about, this is what this talk was designed to be. We're in episode 3 right now. It's a round table. It's the equivalent of people who are involved in the industry who, after an event, would sit around a bar and talk and have these conversations, and letting you guys into this and to sort of understand how the industry works. And yes, I feel, a little bit insecure and vulnerable about some of the conversations we had tonight, but that's exactly what I would have said to Alex and these people at these tastings. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but these are the conversations that we would be having anyway. I think 100%. if we're having a conversation amongst these people, then that's a conversation that's worth having. We don't have conversations that aren't worth having.
If we don't talk about it, what's the point? Yeah.
Exactly. So
also, the other thing is we don't all have to agree, and that is the wonderful thing about whiskey, about passions, about knowledge, is you don't have to agree with each other, but you can have a beautiful discussion that could relate and educate some other people.
Yeah, and going back exactly on Alex, what you just said then too, about 2 hours ago, when we were talking about why we love this industry, is because everyone has worked hard to get here, and everyone loves what this is. So everyone is respectful of everyone else, and we have a complete cross section of beliefs and whatever. And we could not be in, be complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but we will still respect each other's position, perspective, beliefs. And I think that's what this is all about. And that goes for every one of the people who come to the tastings, who are on the chat, all that sort of stuff as well. We thank you a lot. There's a fucking chat going on.
Sorry, what's going on here?
I just watched all of you react to what I just wrote.
So I can only see the first sentence of each word because it's.
I'm out. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon. We'll be back some point next week. We love you all. Without us, without you guys, we don't get to keep our jobs. I've been thanking you to Sam. It's well beyond his bedtime.
I know.
He's meant to be in bed about 8:30.
No, thank you very
much. Right, Sesame Street are doing late runs tomorrow, so it should be fine.
I know. So school doesn't start till 9 tomorrow, so it might be late. But no, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's great to talk about whiskey with sort of people I look up to in the industry. So it's been a pleasure.
Well,
that's only because you got a bit more growing to do.
Yes.
You can talk, Scotty.
Yeah, I'm short. I'm short. He's
still alive.
I'm short, but he's 12 years old. So
kill that live. We're done here. Thanks, Scotty.
I'm trying. If you let me stop yelling at me, and I can turn this shit off.
Yelling.